Chapter 430. Damn it, what's going on? Where the hell is this place? Chu Yang didn't have time to complain. He could only force himself to resist as he activated the pentagram once again. Xiao Guari also started to cry out. It was the same method, but the time it took became extremely long. Every second was torture, and every second was extremely heavy. Naturally, time didn't change. The only difference was that Chu Yang was too tired. Fortunately, Xiao Liu's Blade Radiance and Sword Shadow Array helped him to kill all the light beasts. Fortunately, they are only puppets and light beasts at the 5th level of the Chi Soul realm. Otherwise, I would have really died this time. Chu Yang was so tired that he was about to use his full martial soul. Just as he was about to fall asleep, he heard a whooshing sound. A book of light pierced through from afar and directly entered Chu Yang's consciousness. Immediately, countless information and images surged into his mind. Rays of light and shadows intertwined. His consciousness had completely turned into a world of light and shadows. 1,000 lights and shadows art. This book was a cultivation technique. After Chu Yang understood it, he instantly knew where he was, the 10 heavens and 10 peaks great array of the 10 outer peaks. The Divine Command Peak was a node of this great array. The array seal here used a small dimension as the array seal to support the operation of the great array. Controlling puppets and controlling demonic beasts were the two secret techniques of the Divine Command Peak. They seemed to be built on the 1,000 lights and shadows art. Ha, light true origin, darkness true origin. After sensing it again, Chu Yang couldn't help but laugh. The existence of the 1,000 lights and shadows art allowed him to cultivate light true origin and darkness true origin. Although he couldn't cultivate light true origin and darkness true origin, he was already making progress towards these two. He suppressed his exhaustion and used his genius martial soul to deduce. The celestial globe was already spinning rapidly in the hands of his genius martial soul. In an instant, 2 visualization images appeared. There was a radiant figure with a pure and holy sun behind its head. It was dazzling and holy, as if it was a miraculous radiant figure. Surrounding it were countless radiant beasts. Each of the beasts had a ray of light that was connected to the radiant figure. The light beasts seemed to be believers of the light shadow, and the lines of light were the lines of faith. The other was a dark figure with a crescent moon behind his head. It was pitch black, and if one looked at it, one's soul would be devoured. Countless puppets were controlled by a single shadow. It was as if this dark figure was a devil, controlling and fooling all living things in the world. I have to visualize these two figures at the same time to be able to cultivate. The result of the deduction made Chu Yang very shocked. These two figures were obviously extremely extraordinary. Just visualizing one of them was already very strenuous. It required a lot of spiritual power. Visualizing two figures at the same time was not something an ordinary person could do with their mental strength. Moreover, they had to visualize many light beasts and puppets. No matter how strong Chu Yang's spiritual power was, he could easily withstand the soul pressure of an ascending soul tier. However, when he tried it this time, he found it extremely strenuous. Just as Chu Yang was trying to visualize the two figures at the same time, the genius martial soul and the full martial soul moved strangely. Without any warning, the genius martial soul suddenly shone brightly. Rays of light bloomed from his body. Immediately, his whole body changed into the light figure. Lines of light that were like the lines of faith bloomed, and the other end was connected to the light beasts. A holy sun appeared behind his head. Holy light shone in all directions, illuminating Chu Yang's general consciousness. However, when the holy light fell into the full martial soul's area, it was completely devoured. The idiot martial spirit also turned pitch black. Just like the dark figure, a black devil moon appeared behind his head, swallowing all the light. Lines of control appeared, one after another. Densely packed puppets were controlled by the idiot martial spirit. Chapter 431. Who are the light and dark figures in the 1,000 lights and 10,000 shadows? They can make my genius martial spirit and full martial spirit have such a reaction and even improve. This was very shocking. The light and dark figures were definitely not simple. They should be extremely powerful people. Otherwise, the visualization of them would not be like this. Following the strange reaction of Chu Yang's genius martial spirit and full martial spirit, the 1,000 lights and 10,000 shadows was fully activated. Light and shadow instantly intertwined in Chu Yang's body, as if they were intertwining to form the light and dark figures. Light and shadow intertwined in his skin, flesh, tendons, bones, and even his blood. Chu Yang's body suddenly became transparent and bright, and sometimes as dark as ink. As the light and shadow flashed, at first glance, it seemed that his flesh and blood had disappeared, and only light and shadow were intertwining. At this moment, Chu Yang felt that he had become a knitting machine, as if he was knitting a sweater, and was about to weave a version of himself. This version of himself was intertwined with light and darkness, as if there were countless stars twinkling in the night sky. When this version of himself was completely woven, Chu Yang suddenly had a strange feeling in his heart. It was as if there was a world hidden in his body, and there was a version of himself living in it. Because of this, the power of his physical body was rapidly increasing. The strength of 5 dragons and 6 elephants. The strength of 5 dragons and 7 elephants. The strength of 5 dragons and 8 elephants. In the end, the strength of 5 dragons and 9 elephants could not rush up anymore, and it stopped. Light and shadow intertwined to form myself. The 2 innate physiques of light and darkness, I have almost completed it. Suddenly, Chu Yang's mind stirred, and his whole body emitted a bright light. Rays of light seemed to be released from the 3,650 pores on his body. In an instant, he felt as if the 3,650 pores on his body were his hands. His whole body was filled with hands. Kai. A ray of light shot out from his finger. He felt it for a moment, and the light was tough and sharp. Whoosh! A shadow under Chu Yang's feet pierced out. This shadow was a shadow line, but it was a relatively large shadow line. It was also very tough and could be released very far away. However, the shadow was like his hand. It could still ruthlessly grab the enemy's throat as if it was his arm. It could also bind the enemy like a rope. With the addition of the light and darkness attribute, my other techniques should be even more impressive, but the phantom technique should be the one with the greatest enhancement. Boom! The real elemental energy in Chu Yang's body exploded. It seemed as if his entire body had suddenly split into hundreds of copies of himself. They spread all over the void, and the illusory images were more realistic and clearer than before. It seemed as if every one of them was a real Chu Yang. Shua! The hundreds of Chu Yang blurred again, and each of them transformed into 10 figures. However, these 10 figures were much blurrier than before. Before this, Chu Yang would not have been able to do this. Xiao Guai. Suddenly, Chu Yang looked at Lil Guari. His eyes flickered with light and darkness. When he looked at Lil Guari's crystal-like eyes suddenly blurred, as if she were in a dream. Illusion. Of course, Huan Mo could not only conjure illusions, but he also had the talent of illusions. Naturally, Chu Yang had also obtained such a talent, but he had not used it until now. At this time, with the addition of light and darkness, he used it. However, he did not use his full strength. After all, the target was Lil Guari. Yah! Lil Guari quickly broke free and cried out. Obviously, it was very dissatisfied with Chu Yang's actions. Haha! Chu Yang burst into laughter. However, he was too tired from the previous battle. He directly used the full martial spirit and fell asleep. When Chu Yang was cultivating the 5 Elements sect, the entire 5 Elements sect had already calmed down. However, the influence had just begun. 5 Elements sect, inner 5 peaks. The Raging Flame Peak, which was close to the Fire Element Peak, belonged to the Burning Heaven Saint Sun. Burning Heaven Saint Sun, Burning Heaven Saint Sun's Great Hall. Sitting high up in the main hall was a young man with red hair and red eyebrows. Perhaps because of his red hair and red eyebrows, his face seemed to be very white. There were 5 clear fingerprints on his right cheek. Chapter 432. Zhao Yunlong. Not long ago, the Son of God asked me if I was diligent in my work. The red-haired, red-browed youth's voice was calm and soothing. It wouldn't cause anyone to be afraid, but the white-clothed youth, Zhao Yunlong, trembled violently. Now, I'll ask you the same question. Are you diligent in your work? Son of God, this is my fault. I have nothing to say. Please punish me. Zhao Yunlong knelt down. The red-haired, red-browed youth in the hall was naturally the burning sky saint. Punishment. Do you think I want to hear this? The burning sky saint's voice was still calm. I think you should know what kind of reputation I have in the sect. A dog of the Soul Devourer clan. A dog that wagged its tail when it saw the Soul Devourer clan. It was very obedient. For the dignified Five Elements sect Son of God, these words were especially harsh and unpleasant. The burning sky saint should have no face to be the Five Elements sect Son of God. Zhao Yunlong knew what this meant, which was why he was afraid. Aren't you going to give me an explanation? Zhao Yunlong's body trembled again. Son of God, we originally agreed with the Soul Devourer clan that they would send an elder over. However, Chu Yang tried to harm Murong Huan. They were afraid that our sect would find out about Chu Yang's extraordinariness and pay attention to him. It would be even harder to kill him, so in the end, they only sent a disciple over. It's over just like that. Son of God, this Chu Yang's temperament and talent far exceed our imagination. I underestimated him too much. Do you know the result of underestimating him? Zhao Yunlong couldn't answer. I'll kill a few genius disciples of the Soul Devourer clan to prove that I'm not a dog of the Soul Devourer clan. It's best if I'm a son of God. What do you think of this result? When the burning sky saint looked at Zhao Yunlong again, there seemed to be a cluster of flames jumping in his eyes. It was as if two flames immediately rushed out and burned Zhao Yunlong to death. Saint, my sins are unforgivable. Zhao Yunlong did not try to defend himself. He gritted his teeth, and his eyes were filled with hatred as he said, my father and younger brother, and even my entire family were annihilated by him. Therefore, Holy Son, please kill him no matter what. I will die with no regrets. I beg you, Holy Son. The burning heaven Holy Son coldly snorted, since you want to kill him, then do it with all your heart. If Meridian doesn't work, then do it with irrefutable evidence. Now that I say this, do you know what to do? Saint, are you talking about Endahu? You're not stupid after all. Zhao Yunlong completely understood what Fen Tianxing meant. It's just that the people Ender who sent out were indeed killed by Chu Yang, but it's too difficult to find evidence. Whoosh! A blood-colored bead landed in Zhao Yunlong's hand. This is the ghost soul bead that the Divine Sun gave me. I hope that you can make me feel better when I return with the heads of a few genius disciples of the Soul Devourer clan. Yes, Holy Son. Zhao Yunlong had heard of the ghost soul bead before. It seemed that a prince of the Wei nation was killed by someone, but the murderer could not be found. The Wei emperor was furious and wanted to find the murderer no matter what, so he had this ghost soul bead. The ghost soul bead was made by a mysterious expert. It could show some scenes of that day, and from there, reveal the murderer. Of course, there were conditions, and they were extremely harsh. Not to mention other things, just activating the ghost soul bead once would cause Zhao Yunlong to lose half of his life. Also, during the time that I'm away, you must make sure that nothing goes wrong, wind brain. The wind brain was also called the wind fruit because there seemed to be a brain inside the fruit, so it was called the wind brain. The burning heaven Holy Son obtained it by chance, and he did not even dare to let the Divine Sun know. It was something that even the Five Elements sect's Divine Sun coveted, so it could be seen how precious it was. Zhao Yunlong did not know how the wind brain was born, but he knew two things. First, the wind brain could increase one's perception, and even a fool could become a genius after eating it. Second, the wind brain could allow one to cultivate the innate wind physique that everyone dreamed of. The burning heaven Holy Sun had a fire attribute martial spirit and a fire attribute physique, but he didn't cultivate an innate fire physique. However, the wind helped the fire. Under the effects of the wind brain, when he cultivated the wind physique, it was very likely that he cultivated the fire physique at the same time. Therefore, the importance of the wind brain to the burning heaven Holy Sun could be imagined. Yes, Holy Sun. Chapter 433. Fellow Daoist, your journey as a great thief is about to begin. You will become the person who will turn the Five Elements sect upside down after me. I look forward to your performance surpassing mine and turning the five elements sect upside down. After Chu Yang woke up from his deep slumber, he quickly found a teleportation portal and saw a line of words on the teleportation portal. This was definitely a person who didn't mind causing trouble. Beneath the Divine Command Peak was a dimensional world that was used as a formation seal. It was the same for the other peaks. This teleportation portal led to these places. What a talent. I have to admit that you're impressed, although I don't agree with you jumping around blindly. Jumping around blindly would result in being slapped, especially by the one who jumped the highest. However, this wasn't a problem. Chu Yang's heart was burning with passion. He had actually infiltrated the Five Elements sect's protective mountain formation. The protective mountain formation of the Five Elements sect had been set up when the Five Elements sect was established. It retained the most essential things of the Five Elements sect, and these were the most precious things of the Five Elements sect. For example, the 1,000 Lights and 10,000 Shadows mantra. Such a technique was much more powerful than those things in the Divine Treasure Hall. I wonder what treasures there are ahead. Chu Yang was looking forward to it. Without hesitation, he stepped into the teleportation portal. Boom! When Chu Yang passed through the distorted space and appeared on the other side of the Great Judgment Array, he could clearly feel that the light in front of him had dimmed instantly. Then, a rumbling sound of thunder resounded in the air, covering the sky and earth. As he looked over, he couldn't help but be surprised by everything in front of him. Everything in front of him was no less than the thunder space. It was a vast space, and the sky was filled with dark clouds. Thunder gathered in the dark clouds, and thunder constantly tore through the sky like silver pythons and descended fiercely. The surrounding air was filled with extremely violent thunder yuan qi. In such a place, even the gentle inner yuan in his body was affected by the thunder and became violent. Formation seal. Chu Yang quickly discovered that the formation seal had formed a small path that led straight to the deepest part of the space. The square array seal was silvery white in color. Every array seal had lightning flashing within it. Countless lightning arcs spread out, making the array seal shine with a brilliant silver light. It was exceptionally beautiful. The lightning energy here is very dense. Why don't I try to absorb the lightning into my body and cultivate for a while? When the time comes and I find the thunder tribulation liquid, I will have a certain level of immunity to the lightning energy. Then, I will be able to absorb it faster. Sharpening the axe would not delay the work of cutting firewood. He had wanted to do this in the thunder space, but he didn't dare. After all, the thunder space was an open space. If someone randomly jumped out while he was cultivating, he would probably die. After all, it was very dangerous to guide thunder into one's body. Chu Yang pondered for a while. He felt that he shouldn't be able to do that with his strong physical body, so he moved his body and headed toward the array seal where the thunder was denser. His speed was extremely fast, and he arrived in the blink of an eye. The dark clouds in the sky were even thicker, and the heavenly thunder was even more violent. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Countless thunderbolts streaked across the sky, and then rumbled down, causing the surroundings to become extremely bright. Chu Yang sat cross-legged on the array seal. With a thought, he poured his true yuan into the array seal. After a slight change, silver lightning flashed within the array seal, and the array seal was completely activated. When the array seal was activated, the layers of dark clouds above Chu Yang suddenly surged. The low rumble of thunder was like an ancient thunder beast, letting out an oppressive roar that filled the heavens and earth. Rumble. The dark clouds in the sky churned. A silver lightning bolt, about 10 feet in size, tore through the dark clouds and swept out at an astonishing speed. It fiercely bombarded Chu Yang, who was sitting cross-legged on the lightning platform. Chu Yang looked at the silver lightning bolt that was bombarding him. He hurriedly activated his true yuan to protect his body. Boom! The silver heavenly thunder heavily pounded on Chu Yang's body. His body trembled fiercely, and a piercing pain was emitted from the surface of his body. The dazzling lightning enveloped his entire body. The lightning arcs jumped, and unceasingly broke into his body. In an instant, lightning surged through his skin, flesh, tendons, bones, and organs. Lightning arcs constantly flashed, and were absorbed by his body. Kai Kai. Chapter 434. The heavenly thunder is indeed overbearing. My true yuan is already at the 5th level of the 3rd revolution and is extremely powerful. Yet, it can still refine my true yuan. Chu Yang was overjoyed. After testing the heavenly thunder for a while, he felt relieved. Indeed, such a level of heavenly thunder could not hurt him. At the same time, as he continued to absorb the power of the lightning attribute true yuan continued to form. Rolling hot currents flowed out at an astonishing speed. Boom! The vigorous and violent lightning attribute true yuan gushed into his meridians like a tide. It was extremely violent and uncontrollable like a wild horse. Huff! Chu Yang gently exhaled. After the heavenly thunder was completely absorbed, he activated the array seal once again. Silver light shone out and the dark clouds in the sky suddenly churned violently. Several heavenly thunders rushed down like angry pythons and bombarded his body. The lightning exploded on the surface of Chu Yang's body. The lightning arcs that contained the heavenly thunder continuously flowed into his body and he continued to madly absorb the lightning attribute true yuan. Chu Yang stared at the interior of his body. Soon, he discovered that as he continued to absorb the power of heavenly thunder, his body was becoming more and more accustomed to the violent power of thunder and lightning. The violent thunder attribute vital essence in his body also made him feel extremely docile. The heavenly thunder is still not enough. Chu Yang frowned slightly. As his body continued to evolve towards the innate thunder body, the lightning attribute true yuan was churning and the lightning attribute true yuan was becoming less and less effective. After that, he became bolder. With a thought, he directly activated the array seal's ability to attract lightning to the extreme. Suddenly, silver light surged and the layers of dark clouds in the sky churned violently. Bolts of lightning began to strike down continuously. Chu Yang calmly sat cross-legged and allowed the dazzling lightning to wrap around his body. Although he would feel intense pain when he was struck by the lightning attribute true yuan, this kind of pain was within his tolerance range. The heavenly thunder continuously flowed into Chu Yang's body and tempered his skin, flesh, tendons, and bones. At the same time, the heavenly thunder was continuously absorbed by his skin, flesh, tendons, and bones. Yah! Thunder constantly crackled as silver light flickered. The violent scene made Lil Guari jump in fright. The frequency at which Chu Yang drew the lightning had frightened it. After all, the lightning was extremely violent. If one was not strong enough, they would be heavily injured. Chu Yang was simply heaven-defying, and the benefits of body cultivation were also reflected at this time. He had cultivated 5 kinds of innate physiques, and his body was ridiculously strong. In less than an incense stick's time, Chu Yang sensed that he was no longer able to absorb even the slightest bit of lightning energy. At the same time, such a level of lightning energy was no longer able to strengthen his physical body. At this moment, the lightning attributed true yuan in his body was already overflowing. If I want to cultivate the innate lightning physique, just drawing lightning into my body is far from enough. Chu Yang exhaled a ball of white qi that was faintly tinged with lightning. He carefully sensed that the vigorous real elemental energy in his body was surging like a flood. The degree of tyranny was indeed a little bit stronger than before. Looks like this is the limit. No matter how much thunder energy I absorb, it's useless. The thunder I draw is too terrifying, exceeding the limits of my physical body. Not only is it useless, it's also courting death. Chu Yang's black eyes reflected the thunder that continuously fell from the sky. Those deep eyes were as mysterious as the starry sky. He could not help but look at the deepest part of this space with a burning desire. The thunder tribulation liquid should be able to allow me to cultivate the innate lightning physique and break through to the 6th level of the Chi Soul realm, 6 harmonies yuan. The day when the 3rd transformation of the Chi Soul realm is completed is also possible. Goat, you punished me well. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have encountered such a good thing. Where would I find something as good as the thunder tribulation liquid? A smile uncontrollably spread from the corner of Chu Yang's mouth. He really felt like he had spent a lot of effort. First, it was the 1,000 lights and 10,000 shadows mantra that allowed him to cultivate the light true yuan and darkness true yuan. Now, it was the thunder true yuan. Goat, you didn't expect that you would send me into a huge treasure trove, right? Hee. However, Chu Yang was extremely impressed by this fellow Daoist, this senior. You were able to completely break through the 5 elements sect's great formation. I also need to improve my formation skills. This thing is not bad. Such a thought suddenly appeared in Chu Yang's mind. The benefits of the formation before his eyes were already very tempting. Chapter 435. Following the path opened by others, Chu Yang's path was unobstructed, and he arrived directly. Immediately, a 3-square-meter thunder pool appeared in front of him. The thunder pool was protected by a thunder shield. Electric light flowed on the thunder shield, crackling. Sometimes, the electric light was like a blade, sometimes a sword, and sometimes a thunder tiger or a thunder dragon. It was a dazzling sight. The entire dome seemed to be a sun made of thunder. Kai. Chu Yang raised his hand, and the light and shadow lines bombarded the thunder shield. He tried to penetrate the thunder shield, but the extremely tough and sharp light and shadow lines were like a strand of hair hitting an iron plate. At the same time, the thunder on it exploded, and countless thunder and lightning surged out, instantly annihilating the light and shadow. Following the two, a huge thunder and lightning struck towards Chu Yang. Chu Yang didn't dodge, but his true essence turned into a 5-colored light screen to block in front of him. However, the 5-colored light screen was instantly penetrated, and then bombarded on his body. In an instant, the thunder and lightning wreaked havoc around him, crackling. His whole body was charred black, and the smell of meat emitted from his body. His ears and nose were full of thunder and lightning. When he opened his mouth, a thunder snake struck out. Yaya. Xiao Guori wasn't spared either. Its satin-like 5-colored fur was instantly charred black, and every strand stood up, turning it into a hedgehog. Only its 2 transparent pupils were still bright and white. Yaya. It cried out again, generally criticizing Chu Yang for looking for trouble. There was a way to go in directly, but he just had to try. Now, look at what happened. What a terrifying power of thunder and lightning. Chu Yang didn't have time to pay attention to it. He was incomparably shocked. The power of thunder and lightning on the thunder shield was far more terrifying than the power of thunder and lightning when it was guided into the body. It was far beyond his imagination. This power of thunder and lightning not only acted on his physical body, but also on his martial soul and divine soul. Just now, in his consciousness, a thunder spear covered in thunder and lightning seemed to be a spear of judgment that wanted to judge him. It bombarded his divine soul and martial soul, and it was many times more terrifying than the soul pressure of the 5th level of the ascended soul realm. Fortunately, he had the world opened up by the Xiantian acupoints. Otherwise, he would have died just like that. In other words, he almost died just now. Such an amazing defense, it seems that this thunder tribulation liquid must be very amazing. Chu Yang had a lingering fear, but soon, his heart couldn't help but boil. With a whoosh, he followed the path opened up by the people and went straight into the thunder shield. In an instant, he felt an extremely strong aura of life rushing towards him. The 365 pores and the thousands of cells in his body were cheering and jumping for joy at this moment. All the spiritual thoughts in his consciousness suddenly became active. The saber and sword martial spirit, the flood dragon martial spirit, Little Six and Little Black, and even the genius martial spirit and the idiot martial spirit. At this moment, they were like starving people who saw the most delicious food and couldn't wait to jump on it. Yaya. Xiao Guori also felt this and was very excited. With a plop, it jumped into the thunder pool. In an instant, the thunder tribulation liquid disappeared at a visible speed. Xiao Guori's charred hair recovered in an instant, and its aura continued to rise. It was originally at the 2nd level of the Chi Soul realm, but now its aura was rising crazily. 3rd level of the Chi Soul realm, 4th level of the Chi Soul realm, 5th level of the Chi Soul realm, 6th level of the Chi Soul realm. It was still rising rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it broke through to the ascended soul realm, and it was still rising rapidly. It broke through to the 5th level of the ascended soul realm at an extremely fast speed. Chu Yang's eyeballs almost popped out. When he saw the thunder tribulation liquid in the thunder pool, his eyeballs almost fell out. Chapter 436. Little Guari, leave some for me. Ya. Little Guari was also shocked. It jumped up from the lightning pool and looked at the heavenly tribulation liquid in the lightning pool. It was also dumbfounded. Shortly after, it looked at Chu Yang again. Its body curled up like a child who made a mistake. There was panic in its transparent eyes, as if it knew that it had gotten into big trouble. Chu Yang instantly lost his temper. Little Guari was already so guilty like a sinner. What else did he want? That's enough, Hello Kitty. You're making me feel like the sinner here. Chu Yang gave in to this little fellow. It would definitely die from guilt one day. Also, in the future, you will snatch treasures from others. He wanted to teach little Guari that it had to be like this when snatching treasures from others. But looking at its appearance, it felt even more guilty and self-reproach. Its beautiful eyes were dimming and he could only change his words. However, he couldn't help but roar, "What are you feeling guilty for? If you continue like this, how are you going to live?" Ya. Little Guari was so frightened that it jumped 30 feet high. Chu Yang completely lost his temper. Helplessly, he could only change the path of righteousness. "All right, little Guari, I am your elder brother. Why are you being so polite in front of me? Isn't it just the lightning liquid? What are you treating it like? If you continue like this, I will whip you." Ya. Little Guari was still like a bird. Scram. Chu Yang became impatient. This little thing was really hopeless. He directly became violent. "I already said that I'm your elder brother. What's mine is yours. If you show that kind of expression again, you'll immediately disappear from my sight." Shua. Chu Yang instantly entered the lightning pool. Instantly, all the lightning liquid in the lightning pool entered his body. The lightning pool directly emptied and not a single bit of lightning liquid was left. It was like he was a desert. No matter how much water there was, it would be instantly devoured. At this moment, he really didn't feel anything from the heavenly tribulation fluid. It was like Shubaji eating a ginseng fruit. The heavenly tribulation fluid was gone, and he could only feel his own situation. The injuries caused by the lightning strike just now were all healed in an instant. All of his martial spirits were wrapped in a ray of lightning, as if they were transforming, as if they were evolving. They revealed a joyful thought, and his spiritual power had also increased by a large margin. At the same time, the power around his body was increasing explosively. The power of 5 dragons and 9 elephant. The power of 6 dragons. The power of 6 dragons and 1 elephant. He had directly broken through to the 6th level of the Chi Soul realm, the 6 Huyuan realm, which was extremely unbelievable. At this moment, Chu Yang felt that he was already a dead man with only a skeleton left. However, after encountering the divine liquid of flesh and bones, his flesh and blood instantly regenerated and his bones grew. From a skeleton, he once again became a person and came back to life. Chu Yang didn't feel the formation of the innate thunder physique at all. He also didn't know how his injuries healed and how his mental strength increased sharply. This was too miraculous and shocking. At the same time, his strength was increasing rapidly. The strength of 6 dragons and 2 elephants. The strength of 6 dragons and 3 elephants. The strength of 6 dragons and 4 elephants. He forcefully broke through to the strength of 7 dragons. Just like before when his innate wood physique was not formed, the explosive power leaked out and fell back to the strength of 6 dragons and 9 elephant. This thunder tribulation liquid is a little too shocking. Chu Yang was shocked. He never thought that the thunder tribulation liquid would be so ridiculous. The feeling of the entire process made him feel incomparably miraculous. No, this thunder tribulation liquid is so shocking. I definitely can't give it up. I have to think of a way to enter this place again. Chu Yang was shocked by the miraculous effects of the thunder tribulation liquid. He immediately made up his mind and started to study the array here. The 5 elements guardian array was a huge network. Now, he wanted to be a hacker. He wanted to embed a Trojan horse in the node of the Thunder Tribulation liquid and turn this place into his meat chicken so that he could easily invade at any time. He used his genius martial spirit and the universal reflector to analyze the array here. He went deep into the array seal. Not long after, he found a gourd-shaped array seal in the array seal. As soon as his consciousness fell into the gourd-shaped array seal, Chu Yang immediately erupted with a great devouring power. It crazily devoured his mental strength, and even his martial spirit and divine soul were about to be sucked out. Clang, clang, clang. The genius martial spirit and the fool martial spirit had not been activated yet. The sword martial spirit and the saber martial spirit trembled. The soul-severing exterminating intent that was obtained from devouring the soul-severing gourd was transmitted, and the devouring power on the gourd array seal instantly disappeared. The soul-severing exterminating intent that was above the saber martial spirit and the sword martial spirit was obtained from the soul-severing gourd. Gourd array seal, Soul Devourer Clan. Chapter 437. Chu Yang's first thought was the Soul Devourer Clan. There was a reason for this. In the martial arts world, when talking about gourds, the first thing that came to mind was the Soul Devourer Clan's three great gourds: the Soul-Severing Gourd, the Detention Gourd, and the Soul Devourer Gourd. The gourd could be said to be a symbol of the Soul Devourer Clan. Under the Judgment Hall of the Five Elements sect, there was actually a gourd-shaped formation seal at such an important node. If it was just this, it might not be a problem. However, in this gourd formation seal, once it discovered that Chu Yang's saber and sword martial soul had the aura of the soul-severing gourd, the gourd formation seal immediately stopped attacking. This was unusual. The Soul Devourer Clan has already infiltrated the Five Elements sect's mountain protecting formation, quietly changed and controlled the formation. The more Chu Yang thought about this fact, the more he broke out in a cold sweat. If the Soul Devourer Clan attacked the Five Elements sect one day, then the Five Elements sect's mountain protecting formation would lose its effect. It might even become a sharp blade in the hands of the Soul Devourer Clan. What did this mean? The Five Elements sect would definitely be flattened, completely destroyed, and become the dust of history. I'm afraid it's not as simple as this. The mountain protecting formation has been changed and controlled in such an invisible way. I think the Soul Devourer Clan has already completely infiltrated the Five Elements sect. Now, there were probably many spies of the Soul Devourer Clan in the Five Elements sect. No wonder the Soul Devourer Clan dares to be so arrogant. They even dared to use the matter of the meridian must exist. Moreover, they only sent a disciple to take my life. They have nothing to fear. In an instant, Chu Yang had a deeper understanding of the matter of him being persecuted by the Guardian Elder. Perhaps, this Guardian Elder is a member of the Soul Devourer Clan. Chu Yang was even more shocked. The Soul Devourer Clan had infiltrated the Five Elements sect to such an extent that even the Guardians and Elders of the Divine Command Peak were on their side. It could be said that the Five Elements sect was already riddled with holes. To the Soul Devourer Clan, there were no secrets in the Five Elements sect. He was extremely sure that the Guardian Elder was absolutely not the person with the highest status within the Five Elements sect. As for what rank the Guardian Elder possessed, it was truly difficult for him to imagine. The Peak Masters of the 10 Outer Peaks and the Peak Masters of the 5 Inner Peaks are all possible. What should I do? If the Five Elements sect is destroyed by the Soul Devourer Clan, I will definitely die. Even my family and friends will be in danger. This was definitely not a groundless fear. The Five Elements sect had yet to be destroyed, but the Soul Devourer Clan had already wanted to kill him. If the Five Elements sect was destroyed, how could he have an easy time? Impossible. It seems that Mu Ronghuan's status within the Soul Devourer Clan is even more shocking than I thought. Chu Yang could not help but narrow his eyes. Right at this moment, a furious roar resounded throughout the entire Five Elements sect, even causing Chu Yang's spirit to tremble. Who is it? The voice came from the direction of the Divine Command Peak, causing Chu Yang's heart to instantly skip a beat. This meant that if the owner of the voice chased after him, they would definitely come from the direction of the Divine Command Peak. If he went back the way he came, he would directly be sent to meet them. Also, could the Peak Master of the Divine Command Peak, Sui Yunfu, Also be a spy of the Soul Devourer clan in the Five Elements sect? No, although the voice came from the Divine Command Peak, that voice does not belong to that goat. Chu Yang was very calm and immediately denied his own judgment. However, he truly did not expect that the other party would be so sharp as to instantly discover that he had invaded this place. This place was no longer the Five Elements sect's protective mountain array. It was simply the Soul Devourer clan's territory. Things have gotten out of hand. If the Soul Devourer clan's spy finds out that I have seen through their scheme, it will be difficult for me to live even if I want to. Although all of these were just Chu Yang's own conjectures, it wasn't impossible. Therefore, he only had one thought now, and that was to make a big deal out of this matter. He wanted everyone in the Five Elements sect to know about it. Damn it, just take it that I am evil and treat everyone in the world as bad people. Chapter 438. Chu Yang's true essence immediately gushed out and formed a formation seal. He entered the gourd-shaped formation seal and took control of it. Then, with a thought, the formation on the Judgment Peak started to burn brightly. The Five Elements sect was shaken by the roar. The activation of the array immediately alerted everyone in the Five Elements sect. At this moment, everyone in the Five Elements sect saw a light stele that was 100 feet tall rising from the ruins of the Great Judgment Hall like bamboo shoots after the rain. It made the entire Five Elements sect brighten up. Under everyone's gaze, a line of words appeared on the 100-foot-tall light tablet. I'm the most handsome, I was here. Boom. After the Five Elements sect fell silent, there was a loud boom. It was like boiling water in a pot, completely boiling over. I'm the most handsome. What an impactful name. Sui Yunfu, Long Face, the Peak Lord of the Divine Command Peak, and the other Peak Lords of the 10 Outer Peaks were all stunned when they saw the words I'm the most handsome. I'm the most handsome. How could they not know about this? This time, the Five Elements sect's entrance exam was messed up by this guy. This little bastard is simply out of control. No wonder this little bastard hid his identity on purpose. I feel uncomfortable when he doesn't cause trouble. This guy needs to be taught a lesson. He's already overturning the roof. Who knows what kind of trouble he will cause in the future. The 10 Peak Lords each had their own thoughts. As for Li Hao, Zhong Tian, and the other disciples of the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, after seeing the words I'm the most handsome, they no longer had any doubts. The one who cursed at the Five Elements Patriarch was definitely Chu Yang. Little sheep. Chu Na almost exploded. She gritted her teeth and couldn't wait to skin Chu Yang alive. Wang Xiaoman looked at Chu Na who was about to go berserk and couldn't help but feel pity for her. If she had a younger brother like this, she would probably be on tenterhooks all day long. He was too good at causing trouble. It hadn't even been half a day since he cursed at the Five Elements Patriarch, and now he caused such a huge commotion. Junior brother Chu, this is too insensible. Not to mention Chu Na and Wang Xiaoman, Crooked Blade Immortal, Li Chengfeng, and Gong Shong were also shocked when they saw the 3 words I'm the most handsome. They suddenly realized that Chu Yang was actually the I'm the most handsome who stirred up trouble. At the same time, the 3 of them were speechless to the extreme. They realized that Chu Yang was simply a disaster. Wherever he went, there would be big things happening. Moreover, each of them was bigger than the previous one. Now, it had actually reached such an extent that he was showing off in front of the entire Five Elements sect. He's the only one who dares to do such a daring thing. If I were to compare myself to him for no reason in the future, I would definitely be crazy. The 3 of them secretly said in their hearts. Their hearts were also quite shaken. At this time, they discovered that the gap between them and Chu Yang was far greater than they had imagined. In other words, they were not at the same level as Chu Yang. Lightning Tribulation Liquid. My lightning tribulation liquid. A heart-wrenching, lung-splitting roar rang out. While everyone in the Five Elements sect was staring at the 300-foot-tall light tablet, such a furious roar quickly blasted into everyone's eardrums, causing everyone to be extremely shocked. This was especially true when they heard the 3 words Heavenly Tribulation Liquid. What was the lightning tribulation liquid? Most of the people in the Five Elements sect at least knew that the lightning tribulation liquid was extremely extraordinary. It was a supreme treasure that had a price but no market. Lightning was the power of destruction. The power of destruction was reversed to the extreme and gave birth to the power of vitality. It was extraordinary just thinking about it. The lightning tribulation liquid was the reverse of the power of destruction of lightning. It was a type of lightning that was formed by reversing the power of destruction. Its function was extremely shocking. Not only could it enhance the physical body, it could also enhance the power of the martial spirit and divine soul. It could also cultivate the innate constitution of lightning. It was said that in the end, one could even wield the power of lightning punishment. Chapter 439. At the lightning pool, when an old man with long hair that resembled a lion's manner appeared, Chu Yang had already passed through the teleportation door and was teleported to the core of the Five Elements sect's protective formation, the Five Elements Hall. After the old man with the lion's mouth arrived, he did not immediately pursue. Instead, he checked the gourd array seal at the bottom of the lightning pool. When he saw that the gourd array seal was not touched, he could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, he only came for the thunder tribulation fluid. He should not know about the array seal at all. The eyes of the old man with the lion's mouth flickered with cold light. After thinking for a while, he finally found a sufficient reason to confirm his judgment. If he knew, it would not be as simple as just coming here. I'm afraid he would immediately expose me. Chu Yang did not know what the old man with the lion's mouth was thinking. The reason why he did not expose him on the spot was simply because he did not want to die. He was just a small fry. How many people would believe such shocking words? He might even be framed. He was the one who modified the array seal, and everything was his prank. Especially since he was often not serious, such suspicions could easily be established. At that time, he would be done for. Also, he did not know how many spies of the Soul Devourer clan were hiding in the Five Elements sect, and every one of them could take his life. Even if he succeeded and made the Five Elements sect completely wake up, he would also become a thorn in the Soul Devourer clan's side and a thorn in their flesh. No one could survive, but he would most likely have to die. The deepest reason was Chu Yang's distrust of the Five Elements sect. You have to be careful of the Five Elements sect's sect leader. When he was teleported to the array seal space of the Five Elements Hall, Chu Yang was thinking intensely. Suddenly, he remembered the mysterious person he met in the illusory demon space. When he recalled this sentence, he felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave, and his entire body was ice cold. Could it be that the Five Elements sect's sect leader is also a spy of the Soul Devourer clan? Such a hypothesis really made him shudder. Wang. Soon, a five-colored space appeared in his perception. Meanwhile, the pentagonal anti-sky star within his body started to vibrate violently and emit a buzzing sound. What the hell? Does the pentagram anti-heaven star have something to do with this place? His heart trembled again, and he quickly thought of many things. If the five-point anti-sky star is closely related to something here, then the mysterious man in the enchanting demon Mysteryland must be an expert from the Five Elements sect. If that's the case, my black-bellied guess is right. By now, Chu Yang no longer doubted his own scheming judgment. Suddenly, he was transported into the array mark space of the Five-Element Hall when the five-light anti-sky star in his body rushed out with a whoosh. Chu Yang had a mental connection with the pentagram anti-heavenly star. Following the pentagram anti-heavenly star, he felt that the pentagram anti-heavenly star pierced through layers and layers of spacetime and reached the deepest part of this space. Immediately, a five-colored piece of paper and a pitch-black gourd appeared in his perception. The five-colored paper seemed to be a piece of paper torn from a heavenly book. As soon as Chu Yang sensed it, he felt as if many of the Five Elements' magic were about to jump out of his consciousness. Five Elements' divine skill. Chapter 440. At this moment, the heavenly skill of Five Elements seemed to be completely suppressed. The five-colored paper was pressed down by the black gourd, like a piece of paper on a desk being pressed down by an inkstone, unable to move at all. At the same time, from the black gourd, black lines had penetrated the five-colored paper. The black lines were mixed in with the bright five-colored paper, extremely bright. Buzz. With the appearance of the pentagram anti-heaven star, The five-colored paper seemed to know that strong reinforcements had arrived. It immediately went berserk, and the void shook. It erupted with dazzling five-colored light. In an instant, the void there shattered, and a space-time storm swept out. Chu Yang also immediately lost his perception. Who? Like a thunderclap, a furious voice blasted into Chu Yang's ears. In the furious voice, there was also a faint shock, uneasiness, and panic, as if something shameful had been discovered. It was a subconscious psychological reaction. Shit. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat, almost jumping out of his chest. The sect leader of the Five Elements sect. The black gourd was touched, and he immediately sensed it. If he enters the formation seal space, I'll definitely die. Whoosh. Chu Yang couldn't care about anything else. His figure moved, and he was about to leave through the portal that Bai had opened. But he couldn't help but stare blankly. Perhaps it was because of the battle between the five-colored paper, the five-colored anti-heaven star, and the black gourd, but the formation seal space had been completely sealed. I can't go out. If I don't see him, I can't come in. Chu Yang was very anxious. He immediately scolded, "Bullshit, fellow cultivator. You've screwed me over this time." Stepping on the path opened by Bai, Chu Yang could not turn back. If he could turn back just now, he definitely would not have barged into the Five Elements Hall. His greed could not be ignored. The Thunder Tribulation liquid was so amazing, then wouldn't the treasures in the formation seal space below the Five Elements Hall be even more amazing? He would take the best and the biggest. With this thought in mind, he plunged into this place. After waiting for a while, Chu Yang did not discover who could enter. He could not help but feel relieved. Looks like the Five Elements Grand Formation is not under their complete control. Otherwise, the Five Elements sect would have been destroyed long ago. Furthermore, this place is the foundation of the Five Elements sect. The founder of the Five Elements sect must have been extremely extraordinary. His setup was also extremely astonishing. Even the Five Elements sect's sect master would not be able to control this place. This was the only explanation. Chu Yang couldn't find any other reason. The mysterious man and this place. These existences might be the reason why the Five Elements sect is still alive. Chu Yang let out a long sigh of relief. Although the situation was extremely bad, there was still a way to survive. However, he was currently at a loss of what to do. He was unable to display his insignificant strength. The five-colored paper, the pentagram anti-heaven star, and the black gourd. How is the battle going? The anxious wait seemed incomparably long. Chu Yang did not know how long he had been waiting, but he suddenly sensed the pentagram anti-sky star again. The pentagram anti-heaven star appeared in his line of sight. At the same time, there was a hazy and chaotic gourd. With a whoosh, the two entered Chu Yang's body. Then, the hazy and chaotic gourd exploded. A lot of information and images surged into his consciousness. The chaos had yet to open. The world was vast and nobody could see it. In the hazy chaos, an ancient vine took root in the primordial chaos. A gourd grew out of it. The scenes changed rapidly, but they were all extremely blurry. Many of them were missing. Only when the last scene became clear and complete did it appear completely before his eyes. A seed fell into a desolate land, grew rapidly, and bore 3 gourds. These 3 gourds are the soul-severing gourd, the criminal detention gourd, and the soul-devouring gourd. Chapter 441. The Indestructible Soul Scripture's full name was the 9 Revolution Indestructible Soul Scripture. After the Divine Soul and Martial Soul passed through the 9 tribulations of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, light, and darkness, the Divine Soul and Martial Soul would become indestructible. Indestructible was not truly indestructible. The Divine Soul and Martial Soul would become extremely tough, but there was a limit to indestructibility. After being obliterated 9 times, the Divine Soul and Martial Soul would also turn into ashes. Isn't this 9 Revolution Indestructible Soul Scripture just right for me? After Chu Yang felt the 9 Revolution Indestructible Soul Scripture throughout his body, he was overjoyed. His 9 types of true essence were just right for the 9 Revolution Indestructible Soul Scripture. Once he broke through to the ascending soul realm, he could immediately cultivate the 9-revolution indestructible soul scripture. This 9-revolution indestructible soul scripture is simply tailor-made for me. With this 9-revolution indestructible soul scripture, the improvement of Chu Yang's martial soul was no longer a problem. As long as he cultivated according to the 9-revolution indestructible soul scripture, reaching the 9th level of the ascending soul realm would be a matter of course. The 9-revolution indestructible soul scripture should be a cultivation technique from the Black Gourd, which is to say that this indestructible soul scripture is the Soul Devourer clan's highest cultivation technique. The Soul Severing Gourd, the Criminal Detention Gourd, and the Soul Devourer Gourd were all used on the martial soul and divine soul. They were offensive methods, and their internal support was the indestructible soul scripture. It was the Soul Devourer clan's highest cultivation technique, the 9-revolution indestructible soul scripture. Chu Yang was certain of this point without a doubt. When he recalled the scene in the 9-revolution indestructible soul scripture, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The Soul Devourer clan had obtained the gourd that was born in the primordial chaos? If that was the case, wouldn't the Soul Devourer clan be far more amazing than he imagined? No, the Soul Devourer clan didn't obtain the gourd that was born in the primordial chaos. It was not difficult to judge this point. The Soul Devourer clan did not have a long history, much less than the 5 Elements sect. If they had obtained the gourd that was born in the primordial chaos early on, it would mean that the Soul Devourer clan had already existed since the beginning of the world. However, this was not the case. In the images, there are many missing images after the primordial gourd. The gourd obtained by the Soul Devourer clan should be the descendant of the primordial hazy gourd. Moreover, it is unknown how many generations it has been. Otherwise, the Soul Devourer clan wouldn't be suppressed by the 5 Elements sect. Fortunately, Chu Yang felt relieved. At this time, he remembered the heavenly art of the 5 elements. The heavenly art of the 5 elements. Why didn't I get the heavenly art of the 5 elements? Is this reasonable? I'm the savior of the world. A man whose heart was never content was like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Chu Yang was the best example of this. You dog-shit pentagram anti-heaven star. There are 2 peerless beauties and you want one. You've gone too far. Let me tell you. Wung. The pentagram anti-heaven star started to vibrate. Immediately, a 5-colored square seal flew out from the pentagram anti-heaven star and entered Chu Yang's consciousness. It entered the spiritual world of the innate aperture acupoint. After that, there was no more movement. In an instant, Chu Yang felt that the 5 Elements sect's Great Protective Mountain Array was completely within his consciousness. Every array was like his hands and feet. He could even order them around. This is part of the 5 Elements sect's Great Protective Mountain Array. Chu Yang was shocked. He had obviously gotten a part of the pentagram anti-heaven star's recognition, but not all of it. Master Pentagram Anti-Heaven Star, you mean that I should get the heavenly art of the 5 elements myself if I have the ability? The Pentagram Anti-Heaven Star didn't respond. It was indeed a master. To hell with that layer after layer of space-time. How am I supposed to go through it? Chu Yang could sense the location of the 5-colored paper through the Great Protective Mountain Array. That was because he now had part of the Great Protective Mountain Array's control. With his current strength, there was no way he could reach there. If he could reach there, the current sect leader of the 5 Elements sect would definitely be able to reach there as well. There would be no need for him to use the 9 transformations Undying Soul Scripture to suppress and seize complete control of the Great Protective Mountain Array. Sigh, I've already taken off my clothes and you're letting me see this. Chapter 442. I think I should just slip away. Chu Yang was about to use the control of the array to escape, but he realized that the array seal space had been completely sealed, and he couldn't move it at all. The 5 Elements sect leader and the 5 inner peak masters all had the control of the array. These bunch of tortoise bastards. Are they trying to kill yours truly? Chu Yang sensed through the array and realized that the 15 peak masters of the 10 outer peaks and 5 inner peaks had all arrived, and the one in front of them was an extremely beautiful man. That's right, it was an extremely beautiful man. He had the same brows, eyes, nose, and lips as a woman. His skin was as white as jade, and he exuded a scholarly aura. He was around 34 years old, and his strength was unfathomable. Chu Yang sensed that he was like a deep abyss. This handsome man should be the Five Elements sect leader. He is definitely not just 30 or 40 years old. Chu Yang squinted his eyes. He could sense a great danger from the Five Elements sect leader. If the Five Elements sect leader was really a spy from the Soul Devourer clan, then it would be very troublesome. This person was very difficult to deal with. On the other side, there was an old man with a lion's manner and a lion's mouth. There were 15 people behind him, and they should be the guardian elders of the guardian halls of the 10 outer peaks and the 5 inner peaks. The leading old man with a lion's mouth should be the judgment elder or the judgment elder. I'll give it a try and fight them. Chu Yang's mind flickered, and a 1,000 feet tall light tablet appeared in front of everyone from the Five Elements sect. Incomparably bright words appeared on it. Please shout loudly, I'm the most handsome. I'm the most handsome in the world. There was also a special note, Peak Masters, Elders, especially the sect leader, please take the lead and shout loudly, I am the most handsome in the world. There was a long sentence at the bottom, please don't be embarrassed, because what you are shouting is the truth. I, who is blessed by the heavens, have only described myself as the most handsome. I have already wronged myself, so please all of you become my admirers and worshippers. My existence will bring you endless glory. Boom. The entire Five Elements sect was in an uproar once again. I'm the most handsome had caused trouble all the way to the Five Elements Palace and the sect master of the Five Elements sect. How bold and unscrupulous was he? Little thief, you stole my heavenly tribulation liquid. You deserve to die. Soon after, the lion-mouthed old man's furious roar drowned out everything, causing the Five Elements sect to involuntarily become quiet. Steal. Another line of words appeared on the light steely. What a joke. Is the heavenly tribulation fluid yours? If you call it, will it respond to you? Many people of the Five Elements sect were instantly stunned by such a rascal. They were completely speechless. The face of the elder with the lion's mouth, who was also the presiding elder, became scarily gloomy. All right, take it as a joke. Now, I'm getting serious. Pay attention. After this row of words appeared on the steely of light, everyone nearly collapsed from shock. There was no one else who dared to do such a thing in front of so many great characters of the Five Elements sect. He could truly be said to be the most daring disciple of the Five Elements sect. Are you the one who set up the formation below the presiding elder's palace? Are the presiding elder's palace and the Five Elements sect yours? Are all of them yours? Answer me. Impudent. The elder with the lion's mouth was furious. Am I someone you can question? Ayo, what great prestige, and how high and mighty you are. No wonder the entire Five Elements sect is in a mess. Every disciple of the Guardian Palace is so domineering and arrogant. So this is the reason. If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Chapter 443. I'm going to mess with you. How direct, simple, and violent. I'm not afraid of offending you at all. So what if you're the presiding elder? I'm going to mess with you all the same. The Five Elements sect instantly burst into an uproar. However, many people from the Five Elements sect felt refreshed the moment they heard those words. They felt as if their anger had been vented. Many people even started shouting. Well said. The disciples of the Hall of Guardians are so arrogant. Mess with them. Anyway, I support my handsomeness. The disciples of the Hall of Guardians are so domineering. If they don't like you, they'll just pin a crime on you and mess with you until you're half dead. That's right. The disciples of the Hall of Guardians are too arrogant. The Hall of Guardians, the Judgment Peak, and the Hall of Judgment have been indulging them time and time again, causing them to be even more lawless. It's not just that. I was told clearly by a disciple of the Hall of Guardians that I'm bullying you. If you have the ability, you can go to the Hall of Guardians and complain. I've encountered it too. I was so angry that I went to the Hall of Guardians to seek an explanation. I was beaten half to death by the bullshit Guardian Elders. Could it be that they're so fearless? If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. The crowd was agitated. Voices came out one after another. In an instant, the faces of the upper echelons of the Five Elements sect in the Five Elements Hall were extremely ugly. They never thought that the sect would be so bad. They couldn't help but look at the presiding elder with a solemn face. The presiding elder's heart couldn't help but tighten. The presiding elder was in seclusion. The law enforcement of the Five Elements sect was in the hands of the presiding elder. He naturally knew the current law enforcement situation of the Five Elements sect, especially since this was his intention. Now that it was pointed out, his heart skipped a beat. Presumptuous. The Hall of Guardians is not something you can slander. The presiding elder opened his mouth and immediately changed the topic. You stole the Thunder Calamity liquid, so you stole it. You can't be forgiven. It's useless for you to quibble. When Chu Yang heard these words from within the formation seal space, he couldn't help but sneer. Shortly after, words appeared on the light tablet once again. Back to this topic? Then let me tell you properly, the Thunder Calamity liquid belongs to the Five Elements sect. Do you have any objections? The trial elder did not open his mouth, but the light tablet immediately mocked, I knew you wouldn't be able to answer. Then let me tell you. The Thunder Tribulation elixir belongs to the Five Elements sect, not you. Where did the word steal come from? I am a disciple of the Five Elements sect. I took the Five Elements sect's items on my own accord. How is that stealing? Don't tell me that you, the trial elder, are the only one allowed to enjoy the heavenly tribulation fluid. The presiding elder was furious. The heavenly tribulation fluid is a public treasure of the Five Elements sect. To take it without asking, isn't that stealing? TCH, you even know that the heavenly tribulation fluid is a public item of the Five Elements sect? Then why don't you go ask the disciples of the Five Elements sect? Who knows what the heavenly tribulation fluid is like? Shortly after, Chu Yang directly mocked through the light tablet. Old fart, it's fine that you took the heavenly tribulation fluid for yourself, but you don't even know how to protect the Five Elements sect. Instead, you brought disaster to the Five Elements sect. Your intentions are worthy of death. Buzz. These words were very heavy, causing the faces of the upper echelons of the Five Elements sect to change involuntarily. As for the many disciples of the Five Elements sect, they couldn't help but be shocked. What was the tone of I'm the most handsome just now? A reprimanding tone, the tone of a superior reprimanding his subordinate, the tone of a vicious dog. The presiding elder seemed to be I'm the most handsome dog. How shocking was that? And the accusation was also earth-shattering, causing all the disciples of the Five Elements sect to be shocked. Chapter 444. Chu Renxian, Gong Shong, and Cheng Feng were also shocked. Chu Yang was trying to pierce through the heavens. Even if they had Chu Yang's talent, they wouldn't even think about it, let alone do it. But what was Chu Yang doing now? In a hall of the Wood Element Peak, the meatball Jin Duo bounced up like a ball and said to Cao Ju, Boss, this new brother of yours is amazing. He's catching up to you in terms of acting like a pig to eat a tiger. Boss, you're going to be pressured. Cao Ju couldn't help but be angry and kicked Jin Duo out. What did this have to do with acting like a pig to eat a tiger? He then smiled bitterly and said to himself, Junior brother Chu, why are you imitating my ancestor? You're going to be hung up and beaten later. The person Chu Yang was talking about was actually Cao Ju's ancestor. Scolding the Five Elements sect's ancestor, stealing the heavenly tribulation liquid, and causing trouble in the Five Elements Hall were all done by Cao Ju's ancestor. However, not many people knew about such a secret. Now, Chu Yang seemed to be even more outrageous than the ancestor. Cao Ju's ancestor only scolded him like a child. What about Chu Yang? He had already surpassed this category and directly reached the level of the Five Elements sect's laws. He even scolded the presiding elder from such a high level. His nature was completely different from that of Cao Ju's ancestor. Cao Ju couldn't help but secretly worry about Chu Yang. Naturally, Cao Ju was not the only one who felt that something was amiss. The higher-ups of the Five Elements Great Hall all knew that if they allowed I'm the most handsome to continue like this, The Five Elements Great Hall would lose all respect for the Judgment Great Hall and lose all confidence in the Five Elements Great Hall. Among the people present, Long Face was the most anxious. Because I'm the most handsome was a genius in formations, he paid special attention to him and even liked him. That was why he spoke. I say, little brat, are you done? Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you're talented. If you go too far, even if you don't die, you'll lose a layer of skin. TSK. Within the seal space, Chu Yang was filled with disdain. Do you think that yours truly doesn't know? For the sake of my own life, yours truly has no choice but to live and die with the Five Elements sect. Immediately, a line of words appeared on the light tablet. Sloppy great uncle, what does it have to do with you whether I stole your chicken or petted your dog? You don't even speak human language the moment you come out. Also, do you still have any face? Good intentions were taken as ill intentions. Long Face's face couldn't help but turn black. Chu Yang is too much of a bastard. Why don't you go back and take a look at your sky array peak? What a mess it is now. I can very responsibly say that Sky Array Peak is so unkempt that it makes one's hair stand on end. Hurry up and tidy up. Don't make a fool of yourself here. I really don't know where you get your courage from. Little bastard, you're the one who's inhumane. Long Phage was so angry that he almost fainted. What kind of joke is this? The other Peak Masters were also in trouble. Do you all think you're very good? Let's not talk about other things first. I have to talk about this awesome Divine Command Peak Master, you goat. Sui Yunfu was called out, and he was called a goat in front of everyone. He lost all of his dignity. You still have the nerve to have a dark expression? Why don't you take a look at what happened to your Divine Command Peak recently? A mere disciple of the Soul Devourer clan came to stir up trouble, and your Divine Command Peak's Guardian Elder is like a dog asking for its tail. He almost killed my greatest admirer. Am I right? The matter that had caused a huge uproar was not over yet. Now, it was brought up again. This was simply a disgrace to the Five Elements sect. Therefore, not only did the Divine Command Peak's expression darken, but the faces of the Five Elements sect's upper echelons were also very ugly. If news of this were to spread, the entire Five Elements sect would be laughed at. The Soul Devourer clan fabricated a groundless matter, and then sent a mere disciple of the Soul Devourer clan to casually take the life of a Five Elements sect disciple. If this was not a joke, then what was? Was the Five Elements sect a vassal of the Soul Devourer clan that could be casually taken advantage of by the Soul Devourer clan? Chapter 445. Chu Yang wasn't done yet. Divine Command Peak Lord, I heard that you gave my biggest admirer a hard time, and even punished him to face the wall. Tell me, what did he do wrong? Boom. Chu Na, Wang Xiaoman, Li Hao and the others heard that and their ears buzzed. They knew that things were going to go bad. Their junior brother Chu had always been the kind of person who would pay back 100-fold when he suffered a loss. How could he bear to be told to drill his face into the ground? Their junior brother Chu would definitely take revenge, but Sui Yunfu was the Peak Lord of Divine Command Peak. No matter what, he was still your senior. Even if he was wrong, you shouldn't do this. Chu Yang had crossed the line. Sui Yunfu's face became even gloomier. He didn't say anything, but words appeared on the light tablet. Answer me. It was just 3 simple words, but everyone seemed to have seen it. It was the most handsome roar and question. You're not going to say anything? Don't think that you've trapped me here. I've already gained partial control of the Mountain Guard formation. Do you believe that I'll directly detonate the Mountain Guard formation? His words caused a huge commotion. Everyone's expression changed. Whether it was Chu Na and the others, Chu Renxian and the others, or Cao Ju and the others, they were all extremely shocked and frightened by his words. This was a threat. It was a threat to Sui Yunfu, the Peak Lord of Divine Command Peak, the Sect Master of Five Elements Sect, and all the higher-ups of Five Elements Sect. What's the little sheep doing? Does he want to die? Why is Junior Brother Chu like this? What is Junior Brother Chu planning to do? Those who knew Chu Yang's identity were shocked and even more confused. Chu Yang wasn't someone who didn't know how powerful he was, but why did he do this? At this moment, All the higher-ups of Five Elements sect were extremely gloomy. They couldn't treat Chu Yang as a genius anymore, but as a disaster. Sui Yunfu's eyes flickered with cold light. He could only say, Chu Yang didn't do anything wrong, but his actions were a bit extreme. I need to punish him and make him restrain himself. Extreme? You said extreme? Sarcastic words immediately appeared on the light tablet. Then, it said, then tell me, what should my greatest admirer do? Stick his head out and let you chop it off? The last 3 words were, answer me. This made everyone feel as if they had once again seen my most handsome roar. How could Sui Yunfu answer? If Chu Yang didn't have any tricks up his sleeve, he could only become a dead man. It was extreme, but how could he not be extreme? You can't answer? Then tell me, do you know how bad your divine command peak would be without my greatest admirer? Sui Yunfu couldn't answer this. If you knew, why didn't you deal with it? If he didn't know, it would be his fault. His final answer was, I don't know. I don't know. Chu Yang immediately replied, I don't know, that goat. Then why do you want that pair of eyes? Are you really blind or just pretending to be blind? Sharp sarcasm. How dare you? The sect master of the Five Elements sect, a middle-aged man who looked like a woman in his 30s or 40s, finally spoke. His fair and delicate face was filled with gloominess. How dare you? Who are you calling impudent? In the space of the formation seal, Chu Yang sneered. Sect master of the Five Elements sect, you finally jumped out. He repeatedly questioned and counterattacked. Sect master of the Five Elements sect. Hey, you have such a great reputation and great prestige. You still have the face to call me impudent. I didn't even look for trouble with you, but you still have the face to jump out first. Buzz. In an instant, all the disciples of the Five Elements sect seemed to have their minds buzzing. I'm the most handsome even scolded and reprimanded the sect master. Moreover, his attitude was like a father teaching his son a lesson. Sui Yunfu and the others couldn't help but change their expressions. As for the sect master of the Five Elements sect, his fair and delicate face became even gloomier. You're still not convinced, right? Then I'll tell you. Firstly, the Great Hall of Guardians of the Five Elements sect is tyrannical and unscrupulous. The disciples are frequently bullied and suppressed. Complaints are heard everywhere, and the atmosphere is foul. Secondly, the original leader of the Five Elements sect is being bullied by his original underlings. All these years, the disciples of the Five Elements sect have been bullied repeatedly. They even came to the Five Elements sect. Am I speaking the truth? Of course, the sect master of the Five Elements sect could deny such accusations, but was it useful? It was the truth. As the sect master of the Five Elements sect, what have you done? Chapter 446. Compete. The sect master of Five Elements sect could no longer keep his face. With his status, how could he be questioned by others? He snorted coldly and was furious. You're just a mere disciple of Five Elements sect. What right do you have to question me? With your level, what do you know? Ridiculous. Haha. A sarcastic word immediately appeared on the light tablet. And, Chu Yang's sarcastic sarcasm could be felt by everyone at this moment. Within the seal space, Chu Yang laughed as well. What's the use of using your status as the sect master of Five Elements sect to suppress me? Yours truly has already done things to this extent. What else do I not dare to do? Why would I care about you, the so-called sect master of Five Elements sect? Humph, Five Elements sect's bullshit sect master. Could it be that you think that I am not qualified to question you because of my status as the most handsome person in the world? Boom. Instantly, all the upper echelons of Five Elements sect felt their minds go blank. Even the sect master of Five Elements sect had a drastic change in expression. There had always been a rumor in Five Elements sect that there was a group of people secretly protecting Five Elements sect. They would only appear when Five Elements sect was in danger. These people were known as the Hidden Sect. The entire Five Elements sect was in an uproar. Could it be that the hidden sect of our Five Elements sect really exists? If they don't exist, then what's the most handsome thing about me? If that's the case, The most handsome thing about me is that I'm an expert of the hidden sect of Five Elements sect, or a disciple of an expert. If that's the case, then there's nothing strange about me being the most handsome person in Five Elements sect's mountain protecting array. When Chu-Na heard that Chu Yang was pretending to be the hidden sect of Five Elements sect, she broke out in cold sweat. In Chu Yang's own words, this was simply courting death. If this matter was exposed, Chu Yang would definitely die. But before she could calm down from her fear, Chu Yang's even more shocking words came out. Right now, I suspect that the Guardian Elder of the Divine Command Peak's Guardian Hall is a spy of the Soul Devourer clan in Five Elements sect. It was earth-shattering and heaven-shaking. These words caused the entire Five Elements sect to feel as if a large ship had capsized. However, my most handsome and heaven-shaking words were not over yet. I also suspect that Sui Yun Fu, the Peak Master of Divine Command Peak, is also a spy of the Soul Devourer clan. Sui Yun Fu's expression instantly changed greatly. If I was the most handsome just because of his identity as a disciple, this was nothing. However, if he was criticizing from the hidden sect's point of view, then it was completely different. Hey goat, why are you panicking? I'm just suspecting you. You're not the only one I suspect. You're definitely not the most respected person among the people I suspect. What? Everyone in the Five Elements sect couldn't help but be shocked. Sui Yun Fu was the Divine Command Peak's Peak Master. His position was extraordinary, but wasn't he the one with the highest position in the Five Elements sect? This was too shocking. Many disciples of the Five Elements sect suddenly felt a great sense of crisis. Perhaps there were disciples of the Soul Devourer clan lurking around them. Hehe, you're scared out of your wits. Through the protective formation, Chu Yang saw that the complexions of the higher-ups of the Five Elements sect had abruptly changed. However, he didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt. Instead, he felt only complacent. He had fooled all of them with just a little trick. However, Chu Yang was speaking the truth. As for framing Sui Yun Fu, of course he was taking revenge. When he was burrowing his face into the ground, he had already drawn circles for Sui Yun Fu. He had also recorded the account in his little notebook. After that, Chu Yang once again exaggerated to scare them. Not only that, there are also spies of the Soul Devourer clan among many disciples, successor disciples, and even the Holy Sons. I can very responsibly tell you that this is not the most shocking thing. It was already very shocking now. How much more shocking could you be? That's right. You're right. There should also be spies of the Soul Devourer clan in the inner Five Peaks. I can almost confirm that the current Five Elements sect master is also a spy of the Soul Devourer clan. That's right, my ass. Many people of the Five Elements sect didn't feel that their thoughts were in sync with Chu Yang's. However, when they read to the end, they were instantly horrified. The sect master was a spy of the Soul Devourer clan. If the sect master was a spy, that would be terrible. The hidden sect could reprimand the Five Elements sect master, but they couldn't slander the Five Elements sect as a spy of the Soul Devourer clan. After everyone of the Five Elements sect recovered from their shock, they immediately wanted to refute Chu Yang. However, before they could say anything, an aged voice resounded. Which evil creature are you? You're exaggerating to scare people. I can't forgive you for bringing disaster to the Five Elements sect. In front of the aged voice, everyone seemed to be a worm facing a dragon. The shocking pressure caused everyone to tremble. Chapter 447. Grand Supreme Elder, Grand Supreme Elder, Grand Supreme Elder. One by one, the voices blurted out at the same time. In an instant, the words Grand Supreme Elder resounded throughout the entire Five Elements sect. Grand Supreme, it could be said that it was the Supreme Being. The Grand Supreme Elder had a revered position in the Five Elements sect. His position was equal to the sect leader of the Five Elements sect. However, due to seniority, the Grand Supreme Elder's position was higher than the sect leader of the Five Elements sect. Therefore, even the sect leader of the Five Elements sect had to listen to the Grand Supreme Elder. Chu Yang naturally knew who the owner of the voice was, but he didn't have the time to pay attention. He also didn't have the time to be shocked by the so-called Grand Supreme Elder. At first, The pressure that fell on his body only exerted a great pressure on him. However, as the pressure suddenly increased, Chu Yang almost immediately knelt down. Chu Yang didn't use the spiritual world of his innate acupoints to resist. Old monsters like the Taishang Elder had already become intelligent. They might be able to see through everything and see through his secrets just by relying on a few clues. Naturally, he didn't want his Xiantian aperture to be discovered. Bang! Chu Yang didn't kneel down. Instead, he sat down on the ground. A surprised voice sounded. The Grand Supreme Elder seemed to be surprised by Chu Yang's unbearable state. He also didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Chu Yang sitting down. His arrogant self-esteem made him sit down instead of kneeling. At least he was a little smart. "You're not bad." Immediately after, his voice paused, and he exclaimed in surprise, "Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, lightning, light, and darkness. You already possess all 9 types of quintessence, yet you're still only at the 6th level of the Chi Soul realm, 6 harmonies yuan. Is this really strange?" As expected of an old monster, his eyes were extremely sharp. Chu Yang's heart trembled. Shortly after, the old man's surprised voice sounded again, causing his heart to skip a beat. "Xiantian physique. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth. There's also the thunder Xiantian physique. You actually cultivated all of them. I understand now. Only by cultivating all 9 Xiantian physiques can you break through to the 9th level of the Chi Soul realm. Until now, only this so-called Supreme Elder knew Chu Yang's secret. As expected, you are extremely astonishing. No wonder you have the quintuple anti-heaven star on you. Hurry up and leave. What are you standing here for? The 5 Elements sect can't fall into chaos yet." There was a lot of information in his words, but there was one thing that Chu Yang was very clear about: this Grand Elder had no ill intentions towards him. Of course, the leader of a sect could not be shaken. If he was shaken, then the sect would be in danger. Therefore, Chu Yang could only leave now. The pressure exerted on Chu Yang disappeared, and a passage was torn open in the sealed space of the array seal. Chu Yang instantly stepped into the passage, and his figure disappeared without a trace. "Bastard, where do you think you're going?" The Supreme Elder's furious voice immediately rang out. This was naturally an act. Hearing this voice, Chu Yang originally wanted to escape, but he immediately changed his mind. "With the Supreme Elder holding the fort for me, why do I need to worry about my own safety? This is the best treasure trove, the best cultivation technique trove. If I escape, where can I find the treasures to cultivate the remaining Xiantian physiques? Where can I find the heaven-defying cultivation techniques?" Chu Yang quickly made a decision. In his mind, the armillary sphere showed the entire mountain protecting formation. The formation was like a map of the 5 Elements sect. Every corner of the 5 Elements sect was marked out because the 5 Elements sect was covered with formations. Every important place had a formation. Simply speaking, if the courtyard of an inner court disciple like Chu Yang had a formation, there was no need to talk about other places. Soon, he found a node in the formation Raging Flame Peak, the Burning Heaven Holy Sun's Burning Heaven Palace. It's here. The Burning Heaven Holy Sun wanted to kill Chu Yang, so how could Chu Yang let him go? Swoosh, swoosh. Through the transmission array, Chu Yang quickly teleported. Then, he entered the space of the Fire Element Peaks formation. From here, he directly teleported to the Burning Heaven Palace through the formation. Kaka. Using the Thousand Faces art, Chu Yang changed his appearance and directly appeared in a hidden corner of the Burning Heaven Palace. Chapter 448. The Supreme Elder has actually appeared. An incomparably shocked voice entered Chu Yang's ears. Chu Yang was already prepared. After all, appearing in the Burning Heaven main hall and encountering disciples wasn't strange, so he quickly hid himself. The disciples of the Burning Heaven main hall would never have thought that someone would be able to sneak into the Burning Heaven main hall without anyone noticing. How can he not appear? The sect master has been slandered as a spy of the Soul Devourer clan. If the Supreme Elder still doesn't appear, there will be a big mess. Another voice was heard. Chu Yang searched for the source of the voice, and immediately perceived two people. At this time, the first voice from before said again, "Brother Zhao, it seems that our plan to deal with that bastard Chu Yang will have to be put on hold for now." "Deal with me?" Chu Yang's eyes couldn't help but change. He leaned over and immediately saw the two people clearly. One of them was actually Deity, whom he had seen before. The other person was dressed in white and was extremely refined. He had the appearance of a scholar. At this time, his brows were tightly knitted as he nodded in agreement. "We have to put it on hold. If we jump out at this time, we will definitely attract a lot of attention and become the target of public criticism. Especially this bastard. I'm the most handsome. I've mentioned him many times, so we have to be even more careful. Brother Zhao, I have the same concerns. Moreover, that bastard is indeed not simple." And Daihu's voice. As for this Brother Zhao, Chu Yang's gaze was slightly cold as he thought to himself, could it be that this Brother Zhao is Zhao Yunlong? At this time, Chu Yang had already observed the entire burning heaven main hall. It seemed that Daihu and Brother Zhao wanted to talk about something important. They had sent everyone away and even used the burning heaven main hall's array to completely isolate this place from the outside world. Daihu's cultivation is at the 8th level of the ascending soul realm. That Brother Zhao is also at the 8th level of the ascending soul realm, Chu Yang secretly judged. Now that he had risen to the 6th level of the Chi soul realm, he might be able to kill one of them if he used all his strength. However, he definitely wouldn't be a match for two of them. Moreover, the battle would definitely take a long time and cause a huge commotion. This is not desirable. HMPH. Right now, if I were to rely on my own strength, it would be very difficult for me to kill all of you. However, I have obtained partial control of the 5 elements Great Formation. The Great Formation of the Burning Sky Palace is the supreme weapon in my hands. The Burning Sky Palace was the palace of a holy sun. The palace protection array was definitely not ordinary. Chu Yang immediately calmed down and carefully understood the array formation of the entire Burning Heaven Palace Hall. He immediately determined the level of the array formation, a level 4 array formation. A grade 3 formation corresponded to the ascending soul tier, while a grade 4 formation corresponded to the soul wheel tier. Among the level 3 formations, there was a huge difference in the power of the formations. For example, although the Saber Gleam Sword Shadow formation on Chu Yang was a level 3 formation, it could at most kill those in the 3rd layer of the ascending soul realm. Although they were all level 3 arrays, some could kill a person in the 9th level of the ascending soul realm, while others could only kill a person in the 3rd level of the ascending soul realm. In fact, level 3 arrays could be further subdivided, but they did not. The reason was simple: there were very few array masters. It was very easy for array masters to determine the power of a formation. Whether it was subdivided or not made no difference to them. Level 4 and Level 5 arrays were the same as Level 3 arrays. The current array of the Burning Sky Palace Hall was a fire attribute array that could kill experts in the 5th layer of the Soul Wheel tier. As for the Holy Sun, only those who broke through to the 3rd layer of the Soul Wheel tier would have the qualifications to become a Holy Sun. 9 Dragons Inferno Array. Chu Yang quickly found out the name of the array from the array seal. He even obtained the visualization diagram of the flame dragon from the array seal. A level 4 array requires a level 4 array seal. I can't set it up now, but if I change it to a level 3 array seal, killing those in the 9th layer of the ascending soul realm will definitely not be a problem. This was a huge gain. Chu Yang couldn't help but smile in his heart. Because of the restriction of his realm, he needed the array to protect his life. Such an array was simply a timely rain. My decision is really very wise. Chapter 449. In the Burning Heaven Hall, there were definitely not many people with the surname Zhao. This Brother Zhao was naturally Zhao Yunlong. The sect master of the 5 Elements sect was a spy of the Soul Devourer clan, Supreme Elder, I'm the most handsome, and so on. Many shocking things caused the entire 5 Elements sect to be in an uproar. Even though the array had isolated the entire Burning Heaven Hall, there were still many noises coming in from outside. When Zhao Yunlong heard the many discussions, his eyes couldn't help but flicker. He suddenly said, "Brother An, Do you think that bastard and I'm the most handsome know each other? Or perhaps the two of them have a great connection? This wasn't good news. If Chu Yang was on good terms with I'm the most handsome, it would be even more troublesome to deal with Chu Yang. It's hard to say. As soon as Endehu opened his mouth, he immediately understood. Chu Yang and I'm the most handsome knew each other. The disadvantages outweighed the advantages. He couldn't help but laugh. Brother Zhao, who cares if they know you or not? We can just say that they know each other. Haha, that's exactly what I was thinking. Zhao Yunlong laughed and cupped his fists towards Endehu. It seems that I regret not meeting brother and earlier. Regret not meeting earlier. I'll make you regret not meeting earlier. At this time, Chu Yang had already completely controlled the array of the Burning Heaven Hall. The Five Elements sect's mountain protecting array was the cornerstone of all the arrays of the Five Elements sect. Almost all the arrays of the Five Elements sect were built on top of the mountain protecting array. In this way, because of the existence of the mountain protecting array, many of the arrays of the Five Elements sect would be even stronger. At the same time, if a great enemy came, the disciples and elders of the Five Elements sect could also gather all their power into the mountain protecting array through the array to defend against the enemy. Therefore, with the control of the Five Elements sect's mountain protecting array, it was extremely easy for Chu Yang to control the array of the Burning Heaven Hall. Chu Yang naturally understood the scheme of Endehu and Zhao Yunlong. If the two of them succeeded, then the upper echelons of the Five Elements sect would come to find trouble with him. Even if he didn't die, he would lose a layer of skin. Chu Yang was inwardly furious. He immediately jumped out with one hand on his waist and the other pointing at them. He glared at them fiercely and began his performance. Hey, this road was opened by me, and this tree was planted by me. If you want to pass by here, you have to pay the toll. Chu Yang's sudden appearance scared Endehu and Zhao Yunlong half to death. Then, they suddenly felt suffocated in their hearts. They cried out in alarm, "Sect Master!" The woman's eyebrows, eyes, nose, and lips were very elegant. Chu Yang appeared in front of the two people. That's right, Chu Yang had used the Thousand Faces art to adjust his appearance based on the face of the sect leader of the Five Elements sect. However, he only looked like the sect leader at first glance, and the details were full of flaws. Endehu and Zhao Yunlong also noticed this and couldn't help but be enraged. They roared, "Who are you? How dare you impersonate the sect master? How dare you? How dare you?" However, when the two of them realized this, their reactions were different. Endehu became even more furious, while Zhao Yunlong's heart had already frozen. When did he sneak in? Is his target the wind brain? Has the wind brain already fallen into his stomach? If anything happened to the wind brain, it would be better for him to be dead than alive. Chu Yang directly ignored the two of them and muttered to himself, "Robbery requires skill. Where is the road? Where is the tree? This road was opened by me, and this tree was planted by me. This slogan is obviously wrong. Wouldn't it make me look like I have no skill? This won't do. I have to think about this. This palace is my residence, and this formation master is mine. If you want to live in this palace, you have to leave your life behind. Ah, P2E, what kind of bullshit slogan is this?" Chu Yang ignored Endehu and Zhao Yunlong, causing them to become even more furious. This was especially so when they realized that Chu Yang's cultivation level was only at the 5th or 6th level of the Chi Soul realm. "You're courting death." The two of them roared at the same time. Endehu moved even faster. Roar. An earth-shaking tiger's roar resounded. Immediately, a large, brightly colored tiger rushed out from Endehu's body and leaped high, pouncing towards Chu Yang. Rather than calling it a tiger, it was more like a large saber. Rather than pouncing, it was more like a slash. 5 tigers' soul-breaking saber. Injuring the martial spirit would injure the divine spirit. Endehu planned to crush Chu Yang to death, and this attack was indeed very shocking. Chapter 450. Formation. Endehu and Zhao Yunlong's pupils couldn't help but shrink. TSK. Chu Yang looked furious as he pointed at the two of them. "You interrupted my inspiration. I'll tell you now that I'm very angry right now. You owe me an inspiration. How much confidence did the person in front of him have to be so fearless? And Deity and Zhao Yunlong's hearts had completely sunk. The burning sky hall's formation was already controlled by this person in front of them. No matter how capable they were, they could only admit defeat. Also, robbing requires skill. Just as I was about to improve my robbing skills, you interrupted me. As the saying goes, if you interrupt someone's comprehension, if someone kills someone's parents, you'll be sentenced to death. Swoosh. And Deity and Zhao Yunlong looked at each other. Seeing that Chu Yang was still blabbering on without knowing what was going on, they seized an opportunity and suddenly rushed out of the formation in two directions. Bang bang. Two loud sounds. The two of them were like eggs hitting a rock as they fiercely bounced back. Blood flowed out of their 7 orifices as their internal organs shook and they spasmed on the ground in pain. Just now, in order to escape, they had used too much strength and almost used up all their strength to escape. Now, it was as if they had given themselves a fatal blow. TSK, those two idiots. Chu Yang looked furious again. How dare you not give me face? I was talking here and you actually dared to escape. Since you didn't give me face, I'll have to tell you the importance of face today. Pitiful, too pitiful. In Chu Yang's consciousness, Little Six and Little Black were already mourning for Deity and Zhao Yunlong. Having met a boss like them, these two people were destined to have a rich and colorful life, and it would be unforgettable for the rest of their lives. What you guys lacked was inspiration. The technical content of the robbery, the face, and so on, all of these made Little Six and Little Black think that their boss was a celestial being. You could even think of such a powerful excuse, and it seemed to be very reasonable. They couldn't help but be impressed. Bang bang. At this moment, Deity and Zhao Yunlong had been grabbed by the large hand formed by the formation, and then their faces were smashed into the ground. Deity and Zhao Yunlong's faces were the vanguard. They directly sank into the ground and went deep into the ground. This is called burying your face in the ground. This is a lesson I must teach you to ensure that you understand the importance of face. After all, no matter what, a tree's bark is a human's face. What he said made a lot of sense. Little Six and Little Black were completely convinced by Chu Yang. In terms of absurdity, Chu Yang was #1 in the world. They wouldn't submit to anyone else. When he pulled out Deity's and Zhao Yunlong's faces, he saw that their faces were covered in blood and badly mutilated. Chu Yang felt miserable just by looking at it. He immediately said, "It's not my fault. The ground is too hard. I can't do anything about it. Normally, this is how I teach my classes. Nothing like this has ever happened before. You can only blame yourselves for being unlucky." The Burning Heaven Hall seemed to be made of special materials. The ground was extremely hard. Even with Deity and Zhao Yunlong's cultivation and powerful physical bodies, their faces were still in a terrible state. Also, speaking of which, you guys are actually the main reason. Can't you guys be a little more thick-skinned? If you were a little thicker, wouldn't you be fine just now? Chapter 451. Deity and Zhao Yunlong were originally in extreme pain all over their bodies. When their faces suddenly smashed into the incomparably hard ground of the Burning Heaven Palace Hall, their minds were instantly filled with a roar and dizziness. It was as if their brains had died, and they couldn't feel any pain at all. After a while, the two of them realized that their heads were in incomparable pain, and their faces were also in extreme pain. It was as if their faces no longer existed, and they could barely feel the blood flowing on their faces. Miserable, miserable, miserable. It was incomparably miserable, so miserable that they wanted to cry. They were sure that if they saw their faces now, they would faint. When Chu Yang's voice fell into their ears again, they wanted nothing more than to immediately perish together with Chu Yang. What did it mean to be fine as long as one's face was thick? However, they didn't have the ability. Their minds were in a daze, and they couldn't muster up any strength. Even the circulation of their true essence was difficult. Very quickly, they heard the words that could anger them to death again, and they also saw Chu Yang's current appearance. Chu Yang was very serious and said to them sternly, "I will now officially inform you that first, you owe me a sum of money for your education. I will never tell an ordinary person the importance of face. Who doesn't know the importance of face? Why don't you go and die if you don't tell me? And Hu and Zhao Yunlong were burning inside, and they were living a life worse than death. Even in such a state, they were still being ridiculed and ridiculed. Second, the compensation fee. Inspiration compensation fee, enlightenment compensation fee. You can even think of this reason. You've already robbed me, and you're still talking about bullshit inspiration and bullshit technical content. Third, I will now officially inform you that the two of you have been robbed by me. Before Hu and Zhao Yunlong could curse and curse in their hearts, they felt that someone had skillfully taken away their storage rings and looted them from top to bottom. In the end, they even received a comment and ridicule, "You two poor bastards, the things you have on you aren't even enough for your education." At this moment, Hu and Zhao Yunlong even had the heart to die. Then, they were horrified. "Forget it, I'm a kind-hearted person," Chu Yang said with a smile. "I will tell you the method to become thicker for free. This method is the fire treatment method. Once your faces get used to the high temperature, they won't burn anymore." That's right. People who are thin-skinned tend to blush easily. The fire treatment method I invented is simply marvelous. Fire healing technique. Deity and Zhao Yunlong's faces were already miserable enough, yet they still had to be burned. At this moment, they really wanted to ask, "What kind of grudge do you have against me? Why are you acting like this?" Unfortunately, Chu Yang wouldn't tell them that Deity had sent people to kill him twice, which was enough for Deity to die 10,000 times over. As for Zhao Yunlong, he and the burning heaven holy sun were even more sinister in the matter of the Guardian Hall. How could Chu Yang let him go? Buzz. Chu Yang controlled the formation, and a light membrane appeared, trapping the two of them. Soon after, with a peng sound, flames gushed out from the light membrane, burning the two of them. "Ah!" The two of them screamed. Chu Yang looked at them coldly. "It's a pity that I can't kill people. Otherwise, this name would be too unpleasant to hear when it falls on my other identity." Swish. Chu Yang directly entered the burning heaven hall to loot. This was his original purpose. He released his astonishing divine instinct and searched for the place with the densest vitality in the burning heaven hall. He immediately found a white jade box. Whoosh. Chapter 452. Bang. The instant Chu Yang opened the jade box, a gust of wind caught him off guard and directly blew him away. Shortly after, a few tornadoes appeared in the entire hall, moving and wreaking havoc. Many items in the entire burning heaven hall were all swept up and fluttered in midair. At this time, Chu Yang also saw the treasure in the jade box. It was a strange fruit in the shape of a lychee. This strange fruit seemed to be the eye of the storm. All the wind was generated from it. Every time a gust of wind swept out from the fruit would instantly light up. The scene inside the fruit would appear, a human head. The head was transparent, and the brain was clearly visible. What kind of strange fruit is this? It's so strange. Whoosh. Chu Yang instantly arrived beside the strange fruit and picked it up. He was incomparably shocked. Who cares? I'll know the effect of this strange fruit after eating it. He didn't waste any more brain cells and directly swallowed the strange fruit. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The strange fruit instantly disappeared after entering his mouth. Soon after, Chu Yang's body seemed to have turned into a world of wind. His skin, flesh, tendons, bones, organs, blood, and even every cell seemed to have a gust of wind blowing past. His entire body also suddenly felt cold. The sound of the wind in his body became even more intense. Every acupoint in his body lit up, and a tornado appeared above every acupoint. As it swept, it drove the true essence in his body and crazily flowed. Boom. At the same time, a strange power transformed into a wind dragon, and coiled up along Chu Yang's spine. Then, it rushed straight into Chu Yang's brain. Instantly, there was a burst of rumbling sound in his brain, and he temporarily lost all his senses. At this moment, he seemed to have temporarily died. His brain also seemed to have completely disintegrated and then quickly reassembled. When he recovered from the temporary death, he suddenly felt that his thoughts had become extremely fast. His senses had also become much sharper. The world in his eyes was also suddenly completely different from before. The most obvious change was his perception of the mountain guarding formation. The mountain guarding formation was originally a map, but at this moment, the mountain guarding formation had completely turned into a physical object. The entire five elements sect was within his perception, and every detail was extremely clear. His brain was like a person who did not know kung fu but had his marrow cleansed, his 8 extraordinary meridians opened up, and his conception and governing vessels opened up, becoming a kung fu master. This mutant fruit can actually improve my thinking ability, deduction ability, perception ability, and so on. It's so amazing. Chu Yang suddenly felt that everything in the world had become extremely slow. Everything was moving at a snail's pace. This strange feeling caused him to tremble. What is this? Is the speed of the wind slowing down? Or has my mind become incomparably sharp? Time, space, and everything else has slowed down. No one knew. However, Chu Yang could clearly sense that the process of the formation of his innate wind physique was like a building being built at a very fast speed. Then, it was completed in the blink of an eye. Boom! True origin surged, and the sound of raging waves and tsunamis could be heard from his body. The strength of his physical body was also explosively increasing. In an instant, he broke through to the strength of 7 dragons, reaching the 7th layer of the Chi Soul realm, the 7-star origin realm. The growth of his strength was far from stopping. The strength of 7 dragons and 1 elephant. The strength of 7 dragons and 2 elephants. The strength of 7 dragons and 3 elephants. Until the strength of 7 dragons and 9 elephants reached the peak, it stopped because the innate physique of the next step had not been formed. The light of wisdom flickered in Chu Yang's eyes. At this moment, he seemed to have become an existence similar to a genius martial spirit. Within the light of wisdom, there seemed to be the light of the stars. As the 7-star origin surged, he seemed to be able to sense the Big Dipper in the starry sky. He could already guide the power of the stars with a raise of his hand. Whoosh! Violent winds from all directions converged towards Chu Yang from all directions. The more they gathered, the stronger they became. In the end, they turned into a huge tornado that broke through the roof of the Burning Sky Palace and appeared before the eyes of the 5 Elements sect. It attracted the attention of many people, who immediately cried out in alarm. Chapter 453. The Burning Sky Saint Sun has made another huge breakthrough. The power of this tornado is extremely shocking. Wind helps fire. The Burning Sky Saint Sun has grasped such a secret wind technique. I'm afraid he's even more amazing. No wonder I heard screams from the Burning Sky Hall. I'm afraid that the Burning Sky Saint Sun's breakthrough was extremely tragic. The tornado that appeared in the Burning Sky Hall successfully stole everyone's attention. Many people temporarily put aside the topic of I'm the most handsome and began to discuss and exclaim. Wind Brain. Zhao Yunlong, who was being roasted by the fire, was originally in deep water and was like a piece of meat on a rack. He was screaming in pain as he was being roasted. However, when he suddenly saw the tornado, he realized that something was wrong. The worst situation still happened. He was scared out of his wits as he let out a heart-wrenching roar. He didn't dare to yell out. If the godson knew that the Burning Sky Saint Sun had the wind brain, the consequences would be even more unimaginable. Calmness and rationality made him feel even more pain and fear. He simply couldn't imagine the consequences if the Burning Sky Saint Sun knew that the wind brain was stolen. He was so terrified that his body trembled. His mind spasmed and went blank. And Deity was only enduring the roasting of the flames as he constantly screamed. He thought that Zhao Yunlong couldn't take it. Haha. In the Burning Sky Hall, Chu Yang laughed loudly. The benefits he had gained from this trip were far beyond his imagination. Lightning Tribulation Liquid, Indestructible Soul Scripture, and control of the mountain protecting formation. Now, he had obtained such a strange fruit. Not only did it increase his deduction and comprehension abilities, he could also freely control the wind. He had also cultivated the innate lightning body and the innate wind body. He had broken through 2 realms in succession and his strength had increased explosively. He probably wasn't afraid of those in the 8th or 9th level of the Ascendant Soul Realm at all. Tornado. Spin. Chu Yang looked at the tornado that was rotating at a high speed outside his body. He felt a tearing force in the air, and was suddenly stirred up. At this moment, the tornado seemed to have become a huge electric drill in his eyes. The power of spiraling and rotation was extremely shocking. When the small electric drill spun, it could penetrate cement and metal plates with very little force. In addition to the electric drill, the cutting power of the grinding wheel was also extremely amazing. A thin layer of grinding wheel could easily cut through steel. Some people even said that if a piece of paper was used instead of a grinding wheel, it could easily cut through flesh and even wood. Chu Yang didn't believe that paper could cut wood when it was spinning. There was another way he didn't believe. It was said that if a cross was engraved on the bullet head, when it was shot, it would spin. Once it entered the human body, it would be disastrous. It would directly crush everything. Its lethality was terrifying. It was more than 10 times more powerful than ordinary bullets. Although he didn't believe it, it didn't stop Chu Yang from being certain of one thing. The power of rotation or spirals had a terrifying destructive power. The tornado in front of him had such a characteristic, so he could definitely work on it. Wind blades have the power to cut. Wind can also be a destructive force. He, the genius martial spirit, and the universal manifestation apparatus were all doing their best to deduce. When the three of them started to deduce, the deduction was extremely amazing. His mind moved in an instant. Boom. The tornado outside his body suddenly compressed and became smaller. It burst out with a loud sound. In the end, it turned into a small tornado that fell on Chu Yang's hand. It spun even more violently. The pulling, sucking, and tearing power that burst out was even more astonishing. Go! The tornado in Chu Feng's hand shot towards the ground. Immediately, the tornado expanded and bombarded forward like a huge electric drill. It easily broke through the extremely hard ground of the Burning Heaven Palace and directly sank into the ground. Boom! After a while, the ground collapsed, and a huge and deep pit appeared. The tornado was still wreaking havoc below. Explode! When Chu Yang detonated it, he used the rotation of the pentagram anti-heaven star and the sharpness of it. Chapter 454. Hiss. Chu Yang couldn't help but gasp. It wasn't that the power wasn't great, but that it was too great. His senses were extremely clear. Countless tiny tunnels had already appeared underground, leading in all directions with no end in sight. These were the results of the pentagram anti-heaven star formed by the wind drilling through the ground. It cut through everything and rushed extremely far away. What would happen if it exploded inside the enemy's body? It would probably cut the enemy into powder. This was too shocking. Chu Yang thought about it. If he faced such an attack, he couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. What if the power of lightning was added to it? Wind, lightning, wind, and thunder. Wind and thunder were very compatible. Wouldn't that make it even more terrifying? Wind assisted the fire. Together with the power of fire, it would be equally terrifying. Wind, lightning, and fire were all added to it. It would definitely be even more shocking and possess extremely terrifying destructive power. In his consciousness, Little Six and Little Black were also shocked. The two apes looked at each other and realized that they both felt a chill run down their spines. Boss really isn't human. Anyone who encounters such a thing will have 8 lifetimes of bad luck. Little Black and Little Six conversed. It's not just 8 lifetimes of bad luck. He probably regrets being born. Little Six recalled the scene just now and still felt a lingering fear. That kind of cutting, that kind of tearing force was too terrifying. It could simply destroy everything. He now had another trump card. Haha. Chu Yang couldn't help but laugh out loud again. Let's call this wind drill. Little Six and Little Black immediately lost their temper. This was too casual. Other people's moves would at least sound majestic and domineering no matter what. However, Chu Yang actually gave such a simple name to such a shocking move. The two monkeys could only be described as simple. The firecracker that was originally set off is called Earth Explosion. The so-called Earth Explosion was the move that he and Little Guari used to blast a hole in the Divine Manipulation Peaks formation. Little Six and Little Black looked at Chu Yang, who was frowning and thinking hard. They clearly knew that this was a name that Chu Yang had thought of after racking his brains. Little Six and Little Black no longer had the strength to retort. The two of them finally understood why their names were so simple. Chu Yang was simply too lacking in talent in this aspect. It was all eaten up by dogs. At this time, Chu Yang had already heartlessly collected the treasures of the Burning Heaven Hall. He was beaming with joy and was extremely happy. It was as if he was a miser who had seen a treasure trove. Soul-raising pill, to raise the martial spirit. Not bad, but there are only a few dozen bottles. That's too little. Spirit soul pill. Hee. The pills that I need for the soul reincarnation realm have already been prepared. There's no one in this world who has more foresight than me. Burning Heaven pill, this broken thing should be used to refine the body. You have the nerve to use the two words Burning Heaven and hang the title of Burning Heaven Holy Sun. You casually use such a domineering name like Burning Heaven, aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? Chu Yang silently cursed the Burning Heaven Saint Sun. Fortunately, the Burning Heaven Saint Sun wasn't here, or else he would probably explode in anger. There weren't a lot of pills, but they were all extremely precious. A single soul-raising pill was already not cheap, let alone a spirit soul pill. Haha, so many spirit stones, and all of them are upper-grade spirit stones. When Chu Yang searched the place where the spirit stones were stored, his eyes couldn't help but light up. There was a small mountain of upper-grade spirit stones. It was enough for him to casually buy things and squander for a while. Soul Reincarnation Realm, middle-grade Flame Dragon Sword. Chu Yang was delighted. He was just lacking a good sword. In fact, he was also lacking a good saber. Xiaoliu's unsharpened saber was very extraordinary, but in the end, it wasn't sharpened. There were quite a few weapons and techniques, but the only one that Chu Yang was interested in was the 9-9 Fire Dragon Burning Heaven art. This should be the main technique of the Burning Heaven Holy Sun. This idiot, he didn't even take good care of such a technique. Chu Yang felt that what he said was reasonable, but the Burning Heaven Holy Sun probably wanted to cry. He was a dignified Holy Sun. Who in the Five Elements sect would dare to steal from his Burning Heaven Palace? Facts have proven that this is an extremely radiant and promising career. I have decided to dedicate my life's effort to this. Chu Yang was still not satisfied. He hoped to collect treasures related to light and darkness to completely break through the Chi Soul realm and complete the Chi Soul third transformation. Got it, and Deity and Zhao Yunlong should be able to give me some information. Chapter 455. He had to have a target to rob. Apart from Burning Heaven's Holy Sun, Chu Yang really lacked a target. He really had to count on Deity and Zhao Yunlong. Whoosh! Chu Yang's figure moved, and a gust of wind immediately blew up. In an instant, he disappeared without a trace. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Deity and Zhao Yunlong. The two of you, how is the effect of the fire treatment? Chu Yang was in a good mood, and his smile was very bright. However, in Deity and Zhao Yunlong's eyes, it was as if a demon was smiling at them. Those 8 white teeth seemed to be gnawing on their flesh and chewing on their souls. Chu Yang's smile could be said to be even more terrifying than the flames that were burning them. The two of them couldn't help but shrink their hearts. All the hatred and resentment disappeared, leaving only fear. If you don't say, then I'll just assume that the fire treatment has a miraculous effect on thickening the skin. Little Six and Little Black felt that Chu Yang's words were too much. He was about to roast them, yet he still ridiculed them. It could only be said that it was unwise to be enemies with Chu Yang. Especially since the two of them were too ruthless. Otherwise, Chu Yang wouldn't have made fun of them like this. Let me ask you a question. Is there anyone who is relatively rich around here who isn't as poor as the Burning Heaven Holy Sun? Chu Yang said with a smile. However, his eyes were flickering, as if he was saying, why don't you try pretending to be mute again? The Burning Heaven Palace, the five elements' holy sun palace on the east side. And Deity and Zhao Yunlong blurted out almost at the same time. Omnipotent boss, don't fall into their trap. Become the sword in their hands and directly get rid of their enemies. Little Six immediately said. Little Black also said, that's right. Omnipotent boss, these two have ulterior motives. Chuyang naturally knew this. And Deity and Zhao Yunlong immediately knew that they were in trouble. The two of them seemed to have too much tacit understanding. They actually spoke at the same time, and the consequences were obvious. It would definitely make the demon in front of them suspicious. Chuyang also sneered in his heart, these two trash are already very scared, but even at this time, you still don't forget to trick me. You two are very good. Boom. In his anger, he directly kicked the two of them away, smashing them into the burning heaven palace. Then, through the formation, he used two membranes of light to trap the two of them, suspending them in the air and separating them. This was just a simple application of the prisoner's dilemma. Whoosh. Chuyang flew to Deity and began to interrogate him. Now, can you answer my questions properly? Deity's silence was golden. He didn't make any sound. Silent resistance. Chuyang's expression couldn't help but turn cold. This is very interesting. But do you think that if you don't speak, I can't cripple your cultivation? Immediately, Deity's entire body trembled. If his cultivation was crippled, wouldn't he become a cripple and live a life worse than death? Do you know about eunuchs? Chuyang smiled, I hope that after you become a eunuch, you can live on strong. Eunuch. The fear in Deity's heart became even stronger. Which man wouldn't be afraid? Also, do you know about the benefits of being a homosexual? Chuyang directly smiled evilly. I think the two of you are very suitable. Cripple, eunuch, and homosexual. These three words were like heavy hammers that bombarded Deity's heart. He couldn't bear any of them. Hee hee. Chuyang's evil smile became even more evil. Do you know how people eat monkey brains? Deity obviously knew. The fear in his eyes became even stronger. If he was like a monkey, his head was clamped between two tables, his head was opened, and a monkey used a spoon to dig and eat his brain bit by bit. I can tell you very clearly that letting a monkey eat your brain is already a kind of relief. Do you believe it? Chapter 456. Also, let me remind you. You can choose not to tell, but that doesn't mean your brother Zhao won't tell. Chuyang touched his nose. The corners of his mouth curled up. He smiled faintly and said, so, what's your choice? If Zhao Yunlong told, and Deity was stubborn, what would happen to him in the end? Deity shuddered. Hence, he surrendered in the end. His relationship with Zhao Yunlong wasn't good enough for them to trust each other. What do you want to know? Very good. Chuyang smiled even more happily. In such a situation, he might not be able to do better than Deity. What did you guys say about the Five Elements Saint's Palace? What's your motive? Deity wasn't surprised. He didn't want to say it, but he was afraid that he would give the opportunity to Zhao Yunlong. Hence, he told the truth. It's not the Five Elements Saint, but the Five Elements God. That's where the Five Elements God Palace is located. Chuyang instantly understood. The Five Elements God Child was probably very powerful. Deity and Zhao Yunlong wanted him to die so that they could escape. Tell me more about the Five Elements God Child. The Five Elements God Child has the Five Elements inborn constitution. He's an inborn life form and is now at the 6th level of the Soul Wheel realm. Five Elements inborn constitution, inborn life form. Chuyang's heart skipped a beat. According to Little Six, he was still an imperfect inborn life form and was infinitely close to it. He naturally knew how difficult it was to become an inborn life form. But the Five Elements God Child was actually an inborn life form. The 6th level of the Soul Wheel realm is almost at the Seven Spirits Great Circle. Chuyang frowned again. This kind of strength was also very astonishing. Humans have 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls. The 7 physical souls are respectively spirit, strength, central spirit, essence, heroic spirit, spiritual intelligence, and heaven Chong spirit. The 7 physical souls were the 7 energy fields of the human chakras. Cultivation would allow the 7 energy fields to form a spiritual chakra. This spiritual chakra was called the chakra realm, which was why the realm was called the soul wheel realm. There were 9 levels in the soul wheel realm. The first 7 levels were to form the 7 chakra spirits. The 8th level was to gather the 7 chakra spirits into a formation. The 5 elements divine child was now in the spirit wisdom soul, the spirit wisdom wheel realm. And Dehyu's words contained too much shocking information. You too have a grudge against the 5 elements divine child. This was also what Chu Yang needed to understand. His ultimate goal was to find someone to rob. If he had no conflict with the 5 elements god, why would he bother the 5 elements god? Chu Yang had a bottom line. No. Then what is the relationship between the two of you and the 5 elements divine child? I don't know the 5 elements divine child, and he doesn't like me. At this point, Dehyu could only reveal everything he knew. As for Zhao Yunlong, the 5-element divine child can be said to be his master's master. With this explanation, Chu Yang understood very well. The burning sky saint child was the divine child's little brother, or rather, a dog. In other words, because of him, the 5 elements divine child was very likely to become his enemy. Perhaps this was already the case. Since he was an enemy, then sorry. Who cared if he was a divine child or not, or how strong he was? Since he was an enemy, then he had to kill him. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes and said coldly to Dehyu, "You better promise that everything you say is the truth. Otherwise, you will be miserable." Whoosh! Chu Yang's figure moved, and appeared at Zhao Yunlong's side. Seeing this scene, Dehyu could not help but secretly rejoice in his heart. Fortunately, he did not dare to play any tricks. Otherwise, if Zhao Yunlong confessed, he would really be consigned to eternal damnation. It didn't take long for Chu Yang to finish his interrogation of Zhao Yunlong. He got the same answer, Dehu and Zhao Yunlong both wanted to kill their fellow Daoist but not themselves. So, they told him everything they knew. "Divine child, I'm robbing you. Peng." Chu Yang directly activated the formation and set fire to the entire burning sky palace. Dehyu and Zhao Yunlong were still trapped in the light film and were roasted. Chapter 457. From the moment he was teleported to the mountain peak beside the minor divine palace of 5 elements, the entire minor divine palace of 5 elements fell into Chu Yang's eyes. The scale of the minor divine palace of 5 elements was grand and magnificent. The buildings were built according to the height of the mountain. Halls, pavilions, and buildings were scattered all over the place. Among them, the architecture seemed to be arranged according to the status, function, position, and so on of the temple. It used many forms such as resting hills, hanging hills, hard hills, and double eaves. At the same time, it was covered with noble glazed tiles or cloth tiles. It produced the effect of different heights, distinct primary and secondary, and a riot of colors. There were also many types of beasts on the roof, and their shapes were beautiful. Especially the dragon head of the main hall, which stood alone with its eaves, as if it would never fall. What a lesser 5 elements divine palace. It's so grand. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes. This unknowingly showed the status of the divine son of 5 elements, which was supreme. At the same time, it also showed the strength of the divine son of 5 elements, which was very powerful. He sensed the array and quickly found the location of the divine son of 5 elements, and suddenly smelled the aura of the divine son of 5 elements. In an instant, Chu Yang felt a chill run down his spine. The divine son of 5 elements was far more amazing than he had imagined. If he had just barged in, there would have been nothing left of him. Fortunately, I didn't sneak in directly. Such a person, not to mention trying to control the array, I'm afraid he would have noticed me as soon as I sneaked in. Chu Yang's eyes flickered, and he felt extremely pressured. To be exact, he had never met such an amazing person like the divine son of 5 elements. He carefully looked at the divine son of 5 elements. In an instant, he felt circles of 5 colors from the divine son of 5 elements. The divine son of 5 elements had a 5-colored divine ring between his eyebrows. His face seemed to be a 5-colored circle, and his body seemed to be a circle as well. There was a 5-colored divine ring in his body, and a 5-colored divine ring outside his body. His pupils were also 5-colored. This is the manifestation of the cycle of 5 elements cultivated to a very high level. Chu Yang felt the flow and transformation of the 5 elements' vital essence, and was shocked. The 5 elements' God's cultivation and comprehension of the 5 elements were much deeper than his. In front of the 5 elements' God, he was like a primary school student. At this moment, the 5 elements' divine child was cultivating, and the 5-colored light around him kept flashing. Good, very good. Chu Yang was under a lot of pressure, but he was also excited. The 5 elements' divine child was dangerous, but the treasures and cultivation techniques he had were also amazing. We can only sneak attack. Chu Yang was formulating a plan in his mind. With the 5 elements' grand array, he could instantly appear behind the 5 elements' divine child and knock him out. No, just kill him. If such a person became his enemy, he would definitely not be able to eat or sleep in peace. Thus, he might as well just kill him. Moreover, assassination was easier and safer than a sneak attack. Sneak attacking Chu Yang might not be able to knock out the 5 elements' divine child, and it would be dangerous if he slipped up. Assassination, even if he couldn't kill the 5 elements' divine child in one blow, he would definitely be able to severely injure the 5 elements' divine child, making it easier for him to escape. Fine, I'll do it once. I'd rather betray the world than let the world betray me. The 5 elements' divine child was very likely to become Chu Yang's enemy, but at least he wasn't now. This was the reason why Chu Yang couldn't kill him. However, he had already made up his mind to strangle this huge hidden danger. That's it. One fatal blow, life or death, success or failure, it all depends on this move. Chu Yang directly retreated to the space under the fire element peak. He kept thinking about the way of assassination, and all his essence, qi, and spirit condensed at one point, concentrating, withdrawing, and condensing. Never before had Chu Yang's spirit been so highly concentrated. His aura was constantly withdrawing, and in the depths of his heart, his killing intent was also forcibly suppressed and condensed. He kept deducing every possibility, trying to gather all his strength at one point to explode with the most amazing power. Chapter 458. This was definitely a life and death assassination. Facing the god's son in the minor 5 elements shrine, if he could not kill him, he would immediately fall into a passive state. Moreover, the 5 elements god's son was at the 6th level of the soul wheel realm. Not only did he possess a powerful realm, his vitality was also extremely vigorous. It would be difficult to completely destroy all his vitality. Now, Chu Yang wanted to assassinate such a person. It was an extremely daring and heaven-defying act. Once the assassination was successful, there would be no one in the 5 elements sect that he would not dare to assassinate. I am not proficient in the Supreme Assassin Dao. Among the cultivation techniques, only the wind-chasing life-reaping sword has touched upon it. I may not be able to achieve the white rainbow-piercing sun, blood-splashing 5 steps and killing in one strike, but this is the best time to sharpen my will. Chu Yang wasn't sure. Suddenly, his heart started to fluctuate. Layers of ripples started to form in his heart. At this moment, his mind was finally shaken. Thousands of thoughts were running through his mind. I think I should forget about it. If the assassination fails, it will be troublesome. One should not be too extreme. I have the Destiny Twins martial spirits. The day when I reach the Soul Wheel realm is just around the corner. I can cultivate slowly and there is no need to take risks. After all, a gentleman will not stand under a dangerous wall. Chu Yang had the thought of retreating and it was getting more and more intense. Yes, if I am in a desperate situation, the consequences will be unimaginable. My sister, brother, parents, and friends will all be implicated. At this moment, Chu Yang's consciousness was split into 2 and they were arguing fiercely. His thoughts of retreating were getting heavier and heavier. It was undeniable that with the genius martial spirits and the fool martial spirits, Chu Yang did not need to take risks at all. He could cultivate quietly and increase his cultivation. Soon, he would be able to cultivate to an extremely high level. In the intense battle of thoughts, Chu Yang had almost decided to give up on the assassination and leave immediately. Because he felt the countless dangerous auras from the minor five elements shrine and the five elements god's son had become more intense. These dangerous auras were like slumbering prehistoric beasts. Once they were awakened, the world would be turned upside down and everything would be destroyed. No. This is such a great opportunity and a supreme support, yet I still have so many misgivings and even fear. If I see him in the future, won't I have to curl up and even kneel before him? Suddenly, just as Chu Yang was about to give up, a thought flashed through his mind, and his mind trembled. My cultivation has been smooth sailing ever since the Destiny twins awakened. There haven't been many twists and turns. Although I've tempered a lot, I never thought that my willpower would be so weak. If you don't even dare to carry out such an assassination, how can you stand in this world and not be bullied by anyone? Once I take this step back, I will be a weakling. With a flaw in my heart, how will I be able to reach the peak? I want to be that peerless expert, to control my own life and death, to control my own destiny. No matter what, I have to pass this trial. At this moment, Chu Yang broke the shackles in his heart. He decided to launch a sneak attack instead of an assassination. So what if he left the five elements divine child alive? If he could kill the five elements divine child now, he could do the same in the future. The moment his heart broke the shackles, a strong self-confidence seemed to have sprouted in Chu Yang's heart. His willpower was unprecedentedly strong. Because of the change in Chu Yang's heart, the genius martial soul and the fool martial soul also released a domineering aura at this moment. His true essence also surged, and he didn't need to circulate it to completely integrate it with his body. Whoosh! Without a sound, Chu Yang teleported behind the five elements divine child in an instant, and a brick appeared in his hand. That's right, it was a brick. In Chu Yang's mind, it was the most suitable and perfect combination to knock someone out with a brick. The five elements divine child instantly sensed Chu Yang's appearance. He even felt that he could see the smile on Chu Yang's face and the brick in his hand. However, he couldn't do anything about it because it was too late. The five elements divine child could clearly feel that the brick was about to hit his head. At this moment, no one could describe the elegance of the brick. Bang! The brick formed by true essence exploded. Before the five elements divine child could erupt in humiliation and anger, he was knocked out by the brick. Chapter 459. Hihi, no matter how good your martial arts are, you're still afraid of a kitchen knife, no, a brick. A peerless brick, truly a peerless brick. You won't be able to find another brick like it in this world. Chu Yang was very satisfied with this attack. From teleporting out of the formation seal space to instantly appearing behind the five elements divine child, to the final attack that he had been planning for a long time, the entire process could be said to be impeccable. If it had been an assassination, the five elements divine child would have been dead by now. He couldn't be more dead. With this attack, Chu Yang was like a peerless assassin, reaping lives at will. Such an attack can totally become my method of killing without leaving a trace. In the end, he won't even know how he died. Chu Yang could totally use his somersault cloud as a replacement for the teleportation formation. It was the mystique that he had formed by filling the sky and earth bridges. It should also be able to silently appear behind the five elements divine child. Chu Yang's eyes flashed as he quickly deduced. The fatal windchaser sword, the path to heaven, the somersault cloud, and the wind. All sorts of things flashed in his mind, and he immediately understood. Wait, I'll find someone to test out this brick move of mine. Chu Yang suddenly felt a great sense of satisfaction and pride. Looking at the unconscious five elements divine child on the ground, he felt even more delighted. Previously, when he had been preparing this attack, he had been fighting fiercely in the depths of his heart. It was equivalent to having an inner demon. Once he retreated, not only would it be difficult for him to raise his cultivation level in the future, but even if there were no obstacles, his future achievements would be limited. How could a coward be like a fish in water in the world of martial arts? One had to forge ahead bravely with the mentality of an invincible expert. Only then would one be able to subdue everything and earn the respect and admiration of others. Retreating at the slightest difficulty could only mean that one was weak and had no fate with the strong. Chu Yang had broken through a hurdle in his cultivation, and the rewards he had received were great. This time, he had gathered his strength and used the unique brick. His will and life had climbed to the peak. In the depths of his heart, a firm and tenacious belief was born and condensed. If he were to encounter dangerous situations in the future, he would be able to deal with them more easily. Chu Yang couldn't sense it himself, but if someone was beside him at this moment, they would definitely be able to sense that his aura was different from before. It was filled with a pressure that made people want to submit to him. I hope the 5 elements divine child won't disappoint me. Chu Yang began to search and immediately found 2 things on the 5 elements sun. One was a cultivation method, the Great 5 Elements Cycle scripture. The other was a divine ring, the 5 Elements Cycle heavenly ring. Chu Yang looked at the 5 Elements heaven circulating ring and played with it in his hand. It emitted a dazzling 5-colored light. What a 5 Elements heaven circulating ring! The 5 Elements heaven circulating ring was like a 5-colored sun in his hand. Even if the surrounding light was extremely bright, the 5-colored light formed a rainbow that shone out like a dream. The pentagram anti-heaven star, the 5 Elements heaven circulating ring, one is opposite and one is positive. The former represents the mutual suppression of the 5 elements, while the latter represents the mutual generation of the 5 elements. I just don't know if this 5 elements heaven circulating ring is of the same level as the 5 elements anti-heaven star. Until now, Chu Yang still hadn't figured out what level of weapon the 5 elements anti-heaven star was. At this moment, the 5 elements heaven circulating ring in his hand suddenly shook and flew out of his hand, directly flying into his body. Clang! The sound of metal and stone burst out. Chu Yang's body suddenly erupted with endless 5-colored light. His entire body was translucent, and his entire mind shook violently as if it was about to collapse. What's going on? Chapter 460. Boom. The 5 elements' real elemental energies in Chu Yang's body also surged up violently at this time. They crazily poured into the 5 elements' real elemental energies like stormy waves. First, the 5 elements heaven circulating ring had 5 nodes on it. According to the generation of the 5 elements, when the vital energy went from one node to another, the total amount of 5 elements vital energy would more than double. With the initial amount of vital energy as a unit, each node doubled, and finally, the 5 elements vital energy would increase to 5 times. Then, it flowed into the pentagram reverse star, and immediately, the amount of vital energy began to decrease. In the end, only half of the vital energy was left. The 5 elements heaven circulating ring could produce the 5 elements vital energy on its own. The pentagram reverse star could refine the 5 elements vital energy. The two could only be combined perfectly when they were of the same level. The difference was that the pentagram reverse star was in his hands, while the 5 elements heaven circulating ring was in the hands of the 5 elements divine child. Not only did these two things have such an effect on vital energy, but Chu Yang also found that they had such an effect on his mental strength and even his martial soul. These two things are heaven-defying. Chu Yang was shocked. Once again, he rejoiced at his previous decision. If he did not launch a sneak attack, how could such divine items fall into his hands? Great 5 Elements Circulation Scripture. He quickly skimmed through the cultivation method. In general, it was the use of the 5 Elements Circulation Heavenly Ring. However, there was also a roadmap for the circulation of true essence, as well as a more detailed explanation. There were also many ways to use the 5 Elements True Essence. This cultivation method and the 5 Elements Heaven Circulating Ring are simply prepared for me. Chu Yang quickly plundered the 5 Elements Divine Child, and his gains were extremely rich. 5 Elements Traversing Steps, Great 5 Elements Sword Art, Great 5 Elements Handprint, Soul-Raising Pills, Soul Pills, Spiritual Stones, and so on. The 5 Elements Divine Child had much more than what he had in the Sky-Burning Palace. Haha, I'm rich. This time, I've really become a motorcycle. Chu Yang's movements were extremely fast. Soon, He finished plundering and began to work from the beginning to the end. He controlled the array of the minor five elements palace, hung the five elements divine child up, and then set him on fire. At the same time, he left a message, and Deity and Zhao Yunlong recommended this robbery. He also left his experience and feelings. The five elements divine child's roast goose is a poor bastard, I'm very angry. Little Six and Little Black were both stunned. There was actually such a person in this world. Chu Yang is wicked, too wicked. Not only did he rob the five elements god, he even gave him a bad review. And Deity and Zhao Yunlong were even worse off as they were framed by him. If the five elements divine child woke up and saw these words, he would probably skin Deity and Zhao Yunlong alive and grind their bones to dust. Deity is a chicken, Zhao Yunlong is a duck, and you are a goose, five elements divine child. Chu Yang laughed evilly. Hehe, this young master is really too talented. Roast duck, roast chicken, roast goose, all of them are of the same origin, and the description is very accurate. I can't help but admire myself. To be honest, I'm really looking forward to it. When the roast duck and roast goose are cooked, I think the meat will definitely be very delicious. Roast duck, roast chicken, roast goose. With such sarcastic remarks, Little Six and Little Black could only say that Chu Yang was indeed a heaven-defying martial artist who was omnipotent. Roast goose was so simple and whimsical, yet he could come up with it. Admiration, admiration, they were really full of admiration. They prostrated themselves on all fours. Chu Yang's wickedness continued. Boom. There was the sound of flames bursting out. He activated the array and burned the entire five elements divine palace. Immediately, the entire five elements divine palace was drowned in a sea of fire. The five elements divine child also began to roast. Whoosh! Chu Yang immediately disappeared and returned to the array seal space below the fire element peak through the teleportation array. Crackle, 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 and flames raged. Amidst the crackling sounds, the five elements divine child, who was hung up like a roast goose, had his clothes burned clean in an instant. Then, most of the hair on his body was burned off. The intense pain of the fire immediately woke the five elements divine child up. There was an earth-shattering scream, as if an earth-shattering blow had struck the void. The entire void seemed to have cracked open, and there were countless spiderweb-like cracks everywhere. In an instant, everyone in the five elements sect heard such a scream. Boom! The five elements divine child broke free from his shackles and fell to the ground like a furious giant, causing the entire earth to shake. He lowered his head and immediately saw his appearance. He was like a duck that had its feathers plucked and cleaned. There was nothing covering his body. His whole body was burning with pain. If he thought about being burned, wouldn't he be treated as a duck being roasted? However, compared to the duck's golden skin and flesh, his charred body was too ugly. Too ugly. The five elements divine child was so humiliated and angry that he almost fainted. Then, he roared like an injured beast. Who? Chapter 461. Whoosh. Whoosh. The first to arrive were the five peak masters of the five inner peaks. When they saw the scene in the lesser five elements divine palace, their pupils shrank. When they saw the five elements divine child in such a state, they couldn't help but be shocked and horrified. At this moment, the five elements divine child was like a plucked chicken or duck. After being cleaned up and roasted on the fire, it was accidentally burnt black. The peak masters of the 10 outer peaks, as well as many elders and saints, followed by many true disciples and core disciples. When they arrived, they were shocked when they saw the scene in the lesser five elements divine palace. Who is so bold to set fire to the lesser five elements divine palace? How dare they anger the divine child? Aren't they afraid of dying without a complete corpse? They're courting death. The disciples of the five elements sect were in awe of the five elements divine child. They all saw him as the future sect master of the five elements sect. Who is that black duck that looks like it has been burned by fire? Are you sure it's a duck and not a chicken? Anyway, it's either a chicken or a duck. Could this be the work of the five elements divine child? Although the five elements divine child is a little indecent, I like it. Why do I feel like the five elements divine child is learning from I'm the most handsome? I can't believe the five elements divine child did such a funny thing. No one thought that the bald man with all his hair burnt was the five elements divine child, so they casually ridiculed him. When the words fell into the five elements divine child's ears, they were like countless maggots crawling into his ears and burrowing into his heart. He was extremely disgusted and irritated. Get lost. The five elements divine child roared and unleashed his aura, scaring the disciples of the five elements sect. They immediately exclaimed in disbelief. No way, the one with all his hair burnt like a duck is the five elements divine child? You're not joking, right? How could the divine child be like a duck that had all its feathers burned off? He's definitely not a divine child. How could a divine child be so pathetic? Like a duck, plucked and burnt like a duck. A duck, plucked and burnt like a duck. Every word was heart-wrenching. The five elements divine child felt a great sense of humiliation. His dignity and pride seemed to be like meat that was minced and mixed together into minced meat and wrapped into dumplings. These dumplings were perhaps the most flavorful dumplings in the world. They gathered all the flavors in the world, and when one ate them, all kinds of flavors instantly attacked one's heart. He was the divine child of the five elements, so noble and proud that he was above everyone else. However, there was a day when he was described as a chicken or a duck that had all its feathers plucked and burned. Disgrace. It was a great humiliation, a humiliation that could never be washed away. Shua. The five elements divine child's sharp gaze swept across the group of disciples who were exclaiming in disbelief. His gaze was so sharp that it almost made them go limp. They were so shocked that they cried out, "It can't be. It really is the five elements God. Oh my God, the five elements divine child has become like this. This is unbelievable. The five elements divine child is plucked like a duck." Being plucked like a duck was too harsh for the five elements divine child, especially those idiots. Why would they say anything if they knew it was him? Didn't they think he was humiliated enough? The five elements divine child's eyes were even fiercer. He even wanted to kill them, even though they were all admirers and admirers. Get the hell out of here. He roared again. Yes, yes, yes. Divine child, we'll get lost immediately. Those people were scared out of their wits. Of course, there were many others. The five elements divine child had mixed feelings when he saw the peak masters of the 5 inner peaks and 10 outer peaks of the five elements sect. He even felt the gaze of the five elements sect master from the five elements palace, as well as the gazes of many old monsters in a corner of the five elements sect. What will they think of me? I'm the divine child of the five elements sect, but I'm in such a mess. How can I convince others in the future? Chapter 462. The Divine Son left a message. A disciple's lips trembled as he pointed at the place where Chu Yang had left his message. Ah! The five elements divine son's sharp gaze swept over, and the disciple screamed in fear and fled in a hurry. At this time, the five elements divine son had already seen Chu Yang's message. Deity and Zhao Yunlong strongly recommended this robbery. Deity, Zhao Yunlong, robbery. The five elements divine son gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. His roar resounded throughout the five elements sect, causing Deity and Zhao Yunlong, who heard the five elements divine son's voice, to tremble. The two of them were also shocked. Could it be that the divine son was robbed by that person and completely lost to him? How is that possible? The two of them were scared out of their wits. The five elements divine son was high and mighty in their hearts, and no one could be his opponent. In their eyes, the five elements divine son was absolutely unbeatable. Therefore, they had hoped that the five elements divine son could avenge them, but now this was the result. They had harmed the five elements divine son too. How was that possible? But when they heard the five elements divine son's roar again, they could hear too much anger and humiliation. Roast goose, the five elements divine son's furious voice entered their ears again, and Deity and Zhao Yunlong no longer had any doubts. It was obvious that the five elements divine son had been roasted like them. At the lesser five elements temple, The Five Elements Divine Son was reading Chu Yang's notes and feelings. Five Elements Divine Son, this roast goose is a pauper, I'm very angry. His entire person was ferocious. He had been robbed, humiliated, and even ridiculed like this. The roast goose was fine, but there was a pauper behind it, and you're still angry. Is it because you can't tolerate it? Ah. The Five Elements Divine Son completely lost his composure and roared, I must kill you, I must kill you. No matter who you are, no matter where you run to, I will tear you to pieces. Many of the onlookers were shocked. The person who humiliated the Five Elements Divine Child was simply speechless. It was simply infuriating. They were also shocked. Who was it that dared to humiliate the Five Elements Divine Son and did not even put him in their eyes? Some people seemed to have an answer in their hearts, but they didn't dare to say it out loud. At this time, a disciple suddenly shouted, Look, the burning heaven Holy Son's burning heaven hall has also been set on fire. Immediately, many voices began to ring out. But there are also two people who are being roasted like chickens and ducks. It can't be the burning sky Holy Son and his trusted aide Zhao Yunlong, right? Very likely. Swish. Swish. In an instant, everyone flew towards the burning sky hall, and the Five Elements Son of God followed. The Five Elements Divine Son circulated his true essence and his injuries immediately healed. His hair grew back and he put on his clothes. He turned from a plucked goose into a majestic and noble divine son that people looked up to. Woo woo. When Ndehu and Zhao Yunlong were rescued, the two big men actually started to cry. This made everyone's heart tremble. What kind of devastation did these two big men have to go through to cry like this? Who? The Five Elements Divine Son was annoyed and irritable when he heard the two crying. He only managed to squeeze out one word from between his teeth. The murderous intent on his body seemed to have materialized, surging like waves. Divine Son, it wasn't the two of us who led that villain to you. When the Five Elements Divine Son heard this, he really wanted to tear the two of them into pieces. Do you think I haven't embarrassed myself enough? Are you trying to say that I'm afraid of that bastard? Bang! The Five Elements Divine Son was extremely furious. He directly stomped Zhao Yunlong's head into the ground and looked coldly at Ndehu with murderous eyes. Who? Tell me who it was. I don't know. I don't know. Chapter 463. I'm the most handsome. Everyone's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. I'm the most handsome had framed the sect master of the Five Elements sect as a spy of the Soul Devourer clan. Even the Grand Elder was alarmed by this shocking news, and before the matter had even settled down, he had already caused such a huge commotion. However, if this person was I'm the most handsome, then everything would make sense. At this moment, many disciples began to discuss among themselves. If I'm the most handsome, then there's nothing strange. I'm the most handsome. I don't even care about the sect master, so why would I care about the deities? That's right. I'm the most handsome scolded the presiding elder like a dog, and even dared to slander the sect master. I feel that there's nothing in this world that he doesn't dare to do. I'm the most handsome. Even the Grand Elder, the sect master, and the peak masters couldn't do anything to him. Why would he care about the Five Elements deity? I'm the most handsome. He's lawless. No one can stop him. Boom. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The Five Elements deity vented his anger and stomped on the ground, causing the ground to jump up. Dust rose from where he stood. I'm the most handsome. I'll definitely kill you. The Five Elements deity's roar resounded throughout the entire Five Elements sect and the entire world. In the Five Elements sect, after the news of the Five Elements deity's humiliation spread, the entire Five Elements sect was shaken. Now that they heard that this masterpiece was I'm the most handsome's doing, the entire Five Elements sect fell into an uproar once again. Chu En's sweetheart was scared out of her wits. When she heard such a thing at this time, she really had the urge to cut Chu Yang into 1,000 pieces. As for the people from the Coiling Dragon Martial Institution, they were already scared out of their wits. Their junior brother Chu was simply too bold. He would only be satisfied if he poked a hole in the sky. Although they had already expected that Chu Yang would shake the entire Five Elements sect after entering, they never thought that it would turn the world upside down like this. I heard that only the Burning Sky Holy Sun and the Five Elements Deity were ambushed this time. Do you think it's possible that the Burning Sky Holy Sun and the Five Elements Deity are also spies of the Soul Devourer clan? In the entire Five Element sect, the many disciples were buzzing like flies as they discussed this matter. Don't spout nonsense. If this gets out, I'm afraid you'll die. What's there to be afraid of? I think it's possible. That's right. Why didn't the violent Holy Sun, who came out to provoke the Guardian Elder of the Divine Command Peak, get attacked? Not only the Holy Sun of Violence, but the other Holy Suns as well. The reason for this is very likely because I, the most handsome, reminded us that even if the Burning Sky Holy Sun and the Five Elements Godchild are not spies of the Soul Devourer clan, we still have to be careful and pay attention to them. Chu Yang had said that the sect master of the Five Elements sect was a spy of the Soul Devourer clan. How could such a matter be easily resolved? Although most people did not believe such nonsense, it did not stop the Five Elements sect's disciples from having such a thought. There were even many disciples who thought that it was very possible. The peak lords of the 5 inner and 10 outer peaks, as well as the Five Elements Divine Child, were all incredibly perceptive. They didn't need to listen in to hear the discussions among the disciples. Their expressions were very bad. The violent Holy Sun, who was present, also had a very bad expression. He had also been involved in the discussion. The current situation of the Five Elements sect was really worrying. As for whether the Five Elements sect had been thoroughly infiltrated by the Soul Devourer clan, to be exact, he did not know. Inadvertently, he saw a top-notch person from the corner of his eye. A top-notch person who could be a Holy Sun but not a Holy Sun, Cao Ju. Cao Ju and the big meatball Jin Duo were whispering and laughing secretly. The violent Holy Sun could vaguely see the gloating expressions on the two's faces. He immediately had a feeling in his heart and immediately blurted out, "Brother Cao, do you have a clue about my most handsome?" As soon as the violent Holy Sun spoke, all eyes fell on Cao Ju and Jin Duo. Chapter 464. Cao Ju was also shocked. Jin Duo was extremely fat, while Cao Ju was slightly chubby. They were already very eye-catching when they stood together, and now that everyone was looking at them, they seemed to be shining. "Brother Guo, you must be joking." The violent saint's name was Guo Shuwen. It was a very scholarly name, which was the complete opposite of his title as a saint. Cao Ju responded easily. "I was just thinking if I should put up a sign in front of my house, 'I'm a pauper. Let's see if it can ward off evil.'" "Cao Ju, do you want to die?" The Five Elements Divine Child was provoked by the word pauper, and he thought that Cao Ju was mocking him. "You can give it a try." Cao Ju's eyes turned cold and angry. "Jun Yudao, I'm indeed no match for you, but I can at least break one of your teeth." Boom. Suddenly, Cao Ju and the Five Elements Divine Child, Jun Yudao, confronted each other. Their auras were like mountains and seas, surging and majestic. This confrontation caused a fierce wind to blow and ripples to appear in the void. It was as if the world was about to change color. "Enough. Do you two think that it's not chaotic enough? Don't you know how to restrain yourselves?" The furious voice of the sect leader of the Five Elements sect resounded from the Five Elements Great Hall, forcing both of them to withdraw their auras. While the Five Elements sect was in an upheaval, Chu Yang was crazily looting the space of the formation seals of the Five Peaks. He swept clean all the divine liquids of the Five Elements, such as the divine liquids of Fire Element, divine liquids of Wood Element, and divine liquids of Earth Element. Chu Yang absorbed these divine liquids, and then quickly opened and built the Five Elements Meridian Circuit according to the Great Five Elements Circulation Sutra. He didn't use much of the divine liquids, and the main ones to absorb them were the Five Elements Divine Ring, the Pentagram Anti-Heaven Star, and Xiao Guari. The Five Elements Divine Ring and the Pentagram Anti-Heaven Star seemed to have been severely damaged, and the Five Elements Divine Liquid was very useful for them. Basically, Little Guari had used up half of the Five Elements Divine Liquid, while the Five Elements Heaven Circulating Ring and the Pentagram Reverse Star had used up less than half. The 5 elements divine liquid had a limited effect on the recovery of the two. The remaining 5 elements divine liquid was absorbed by Chu Yang to cultivate the Great 5 Elements Circulation Sutra. He did not really need the 5 elements divine liquid. After looting all the 5 elements godly liquid in the 5 inner peaks, Chu Yang began to play tricks before he left. Boom! First, the fire element peak shone brightly. 1,000 feet tall light tablet was erected, like a heavenly pillar. On the tablet, a line of words was constantly flashing, shining brightly. My king asked me to patrol the mountain. When the fire element peak's peak master saw this, he felt as if he had a heart attack. He almost fell from the sky. After that, the remaining 4 inner peaks emitted light tablets one after another. The words "the king asked me to patrol the mountains" also flashed one after another. The light was so dazzling that it made everything in the world lose its color in an instant. Traitor, you deserve to die. Boom. The 5 peak masters of the 5 inner peaks emitted their auras. Immediately, 5 fire beacons soared into the sky, like 5 heavenly pillars. What are you shouting for? Do you still have the face? Another row of glittering words appeared on the light tablet. As the peak master of the 5 inner peaks, you didn't even notice that the 5 elements divine liquid was stolen from the main peak that you were guarding. Do you feel proud? Let me give you a suggestion. Go back and check on your sons. I'm afraid you might find something big. Chu Yang was very black-hearted. He was clearly the one who stole it, but he blamed it all on the Soul Devourer clan. However, he really found traces of the Soul Devourer clan modifying the formation in the 5 inner peaks. He was telling the truth at least half of what he said. The 5 peak masters of the 5 inner peaks vomited blood. Chu Yang's words were too vicious. Not only did he insinuate that they were cuckolded, he even happily raised the sons of others. The king asked me to patrol the mountain. The 10 outer peaks were not spared either. They were all revealed, and the entire 5 elements sect shone brightly. The more dazzling the light was, the more intense and deep the mockery and humiliation of the 5 elements sect. The 15 peak masters were completely enraged. They chased after Chu Yang crazily. When Chu Yang was about to return to the prison from the Divine Command Peaks formation, a voice suddenly appeared in his mind. Don't go back to the Dragon Torture Arena. Otherwise, your identity will be exposed immediately. Chapter 465. Previously, when Chu Yang was cursing the 5 elements' old ancestor, the entire 5 elements sect was shaken. Many powerful consciousnesses had descended upon the prison. Chu Yang had escaped into the formation seal space, and they had not discovered him. If he were to return to the prison now, wouldn't he be confessing without being pressed? Also, there was an irreparable loophole. It was the goat that followed the clouds and sent him to the prison. The goat did not realize it now, but once he calmed down and tracked down the identity of "I'm the most handsome," the goat would definitely discover it. It's over, it's over. Chu Yang could only pin his hopes on this voice. It was the voice of the Grand Elder. Chu Yang speculated that the so-called Dragon Torture platform should be the prison that he mentioned. Don't worry. I changed the route halfway and sent you to the Dragon Torture platform. The Grand Elder obviously knew Chu Yang's worries. His words made Chu Yang's tense heartstrings relax. He could not respond and could only wait for the Grand Elder's instructions. Don't neglect your cultivation of the Mahamayuri Sutra. I hope you can cultivate the 5-colored Buddha and display the 5-colored Buddha light. Mahamayuri Sutra. 5-colored Buddha, 5-colored Buddha light. Chu Yang's heart jolted again. The Grand Elder was obviously reminding him that the Mahamayuri Sutra was extraordinary. He had indeed neglected his cultivation of the Mahamayuri Sutra recently. Also, remember not to let anyone discover Elder Peacock's celestial globe. Elder Peacock's last sentence resolved many of Chu Yang's doubts. The key was Elder Peacock's point. Both the Mahamayuri Sutra and the celestial globe belonged to Elder Peacock. As he cultivated the Mahamayuri Sutra, he sensed the abnormality in the dilapidated Buddha statue and killed it to obtain the celestial globe millstone. Elder Peacock should be a supreme existence in the 5 elements sect. That was why the Grand Elder knew everything clearly. Swish. The Grand Elder's soul transmission only took a short while. During this time, Chu Yang quickly found the place where the disciples were facing the wall on the Divine Command Peak through the protective formation of the Five Element sect. He directly teleported there. Of course, there was no one. If there was someone, Chu Yang would not appear so easily. And this was the real cliff face peak. Dangerous cliffs towered up, jagged rocks of grotesque shapes, a deathly stillness. There was not even a single tree growing here, only the whistling of the wind. "Ha, Lil Guari, this is much better than that damned place." Chu Yang laughed heartily. He was completely relieved. The higher-ups of the Five Elements sect could only scratch blindly now. They couldn't find him. Even though they had a body full of strength, they could only punch the air, and they were about to suffer internal injuries from suffocating. "Ya. Lil Guari agreed. Compared to the cramped space of the dragon torturing platform, although this place was extremely desolate, it was still a paradise. In this damned place, I can only cultivate. Chu Yang glanced around. When he turned back and saw that Lil Guari was already having a lot of fun, he immediately roared angrily, "Lil Guari, why aren't you cultivating? You swallowed so much Five Elements divine liquid, but your cultivation didn't increase at all." Lil Guari was very strange. Originally, when it absorbed the Thunder Tribulation liquid, its cultivation soared. But after absorbing so much Five Elements divine liquid, it only increased to the 6th level of the ascending soul realm. Ya. Lil Guari was not convinced. Its little paw pointed at Chu Yang. "You only increased by 2 levels. What right do you have to scold me? Aya, you still have a temper now." Chu Yang glared at it. "Hurry up and go cultivate. Otherwise, when I use you to cultivate, don't cry." This little thing couldn't just be a Hello Kitty. Chu Yang planned to increase its battle strength. Ya. Lil Guari became excited. Its little paw clenched into a fist, looking eager to try. "Lil Guari, is there something wrong with your brain? You're happy when you're being tortured. When it's being tortured later, it won't be happy." Little Six and Little Black started to communicate with each other. They both agreed that fighting with a monster like Chu Yang was definitely a kind of tragedy. It would make people doubt their life. Little Guari doubted its life, and Little Guari doubted its good nature. Ya. Lil Guari shouted and waved its little fist at Little Six and Little Black. It was very dissatisfied. It felt that it was being underestimated. Okay. Lil Guari, you're amazing. We were wrong, okay? The two monkeys didn't have any temper with it. They could only talk to it nicely. In short, this little thing was very naive. Even their boss couldn't do anything about its naivety. He didn't dare to bring it along when doing bad things. Then, Chu Yang reached out and pointed. He passed all the 5 elements steps, 5 elements sword technique, 5 elements palm print, and 5 elements circulation scripture to Lil Guari. Lil Guari immediately quieted down and started cultivating. Suddenly, its body shone with 5-colored light. All the 5 elements cultivation methods were performed in the blink of an eye. First was the 5 elements circulation scripture. It didn't have the 5 elements circulation heavenly ring, but it immediately constructed the 5 elements circulation scripture. Its body immediately showed the 5 elements aura like the 5 elements divine sun. It was a kind of perfect 5 elements circulation aura. Chapter 466. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 5-colored shadows flashed as Lil Thing instantly comprehended the 5 elements traversing steps. True essence surged under its claws, and 5-colored clouds appeared on each of them. As it moved, it seemed to be riding on the clouds. Every movement was like a teleportation formation. It was extremely fast, and the 5-colored figure seemed to be distorted by time and space. There were many afterimages, and it was impossible to capture. As the 5 elements flowed, Lil Thing stepped from one to another, as if it was moving between 2 worlds. It was fast, elegant, and profound, as if it wanted to jump out of the 3 realms and 5 elements. Hey! Chu Yang was very surprised. He never thought that Lil Thing would be so shocking. It seemed to have been born with the 5 Elements Circulation Sutra and the 5 Elements Traversing Steps. It seemed to have practiced them thousands of times. Everything was already deeply ingrained in its bones. It was as pure as fire and had reached perfection. The 5 Elements Traversing Steps was shocking. He also didn't expect it. When it was used, it was like riding on the clouds. If it was combined with his path to heaven, wouldn't it really become a somersault cloud? Chuyang couldn't help but try it out. His 5 elements true essence flowed according to the 5 elements traversing steps. Immediately, a 5-colored cloud appeared under his feet. Then, he seemed to be swept into a current. Even if he didn't move, there was a force pushing him along with the current. This is the effect of the 5 Elements Circulation Sutra. Peng. Chuyang suddenly flashed like a flame. Then, he suddenly changed. His body was sometimes as light as a speck of dust, sometimes as heavy as a star. As he floated, he seemed to be moving through the void. In an instant, he crossed an extremely long distance. Just now, I was in the fire element position, so my body exploded like fire. Then, I stepped into the earth element position, and the weight of the earth I comprehended was reflected in my movement technique. Whoosh! The 5 elements engendered each other. This time, Chuyang stepped from the earth element position to the metal element position. In an instant, his entire body pierced through the void like a flying sword. Then, as if he had sneaked into the night with the wind, he silently flashed out. Following that, his body movement suddenly turned into numerous illusory shadows. It was as if the roots of a tree had taken root in the earth and pierced into the void. Water element position, wood element position, then fire element position, and so on. Chuyang's movement technique was a little different from Lil Thing. It cried. After observing Chuyang's formation, it used Chuyang's movement technique like a shadow behind Chuyang. But suddenly, it lost Chuyang. Chuyang was obviously going to the right, but when it followed him, it was shocked to find that Chuyang was going to the left. And this situation continued. Chuyang was Thing. Lil's transparent eyes. Lil Si's eyes as its transparent eyes. Lil eyes. Was Lil transparent? Lil. Yi. Lil Thing was quite powerful, but now it couldn't keep up with Chuyang. After a while, it quieted down and stared at Chuyang with its transparent eyes. Gradually, a diagram of 5 elements appeared in Lil Thing's eyes. Chuyang was moving in such a diagram. There were 3 directions: the 5 elements direction of mutual generation, the 5 elements direction of mutual generation, and the 5 elements direction of mutual generation. The direction of mutual generation was like walking from the fire element position to the earth element position. Chuyang's vital energy of the 5 elements suddenly weakened, and the distance he took became very small. The direction of mutual generation was like walking from the metal element position to the fire element position. He would go to the right and then to the left. The direction of mutual generation was like earth giving birth to metal. From the metal element position to the earth element position, Chuyang's body seemed to have turned into a baby and returned to his mother's womb. It was as if time and space had been reversed. Appearing in his movement technique, it made people feel as if time and space had been disrupted, fast but slow, big but small, fast and slow chaotic, big and small chaotic. The 5 elements disordered step. Chuyang felt that the 5 elements sex traversing steps could only allow him to traverse a large area. Flashing and moving in a small area was not enough, so he deduced and improved it. After Lil Guari understood, it immediately became Chuyang's shadow. If Chuyang went to the right, it would go to the right. If Chuyang went to the left, it would go to the left. When the 2 were used at the same time, it looked even more chaotic and strange. The disordered feeling was even more obvious. It was completely impossible to capture the 2 figures. These 2 monsters, Little Six and Little Black, clearly knew that Lil Guari must be following Chuyang. However, when their gazes fell on Lil Guari and tried their best to capture it, it seemed as if countless thin lines were constantly intertwining and twisting. In the end, it became a mess. They felt as if they were hallucinating and their minds were about to be messed up. They even felt dizzy. This feeling was very uncomfortable. When Chu Yang was deducing the 5 elements disordered steps, the higher-ups of the 5 elements sect had been chasing after Chu Yang. However, in the end, they had checked the entire 5 elements sect's protective mountain array. Not even a shadow was found. If we don't get rid of this traitor, how can the 5 elements sect maintain its prestige? That's right. No matter what, we must find him and kill him as an example to others. However, how could they find I'm the most handsome? Whether it was the 5 peak masters of the 5 inner peaks or the 10 peak masters of the 10 outer peaks, they were all at a loss. I'm the most handsome has repeatedly mentioned that disciple called Chu Yang. The two should be related. I suggest that we try to start from there and interrogate him. Chapter 467. The word get was very simple, but the fire element peak master and the rest would definitely do anything to obtain the whereabouts of the most handsome man. If that was the case, it was obvious what Chu Yang was going to suffer. If Chu Yang knew the whereabouts of the most handsome man, he would definitely not be able to escape death even if he told the truth. He might even be executed for treason. If he didn't know, he would die even more miserably. With the fire element peak master's current realm, he had too many methods to interrogate someone. With all kinds of torture methods, even if Chu Yang didn't die, he would become a cripple. This wasn't Sui Yunfu's groundless worry, but a precedent. A few decades ago, the Thousand Devil sect infiltrated the 5 Element sect and stole their secret technique. At that time, the entire 5 Element sect was furious, but there was no trace of them. In the end, they interrogated a 5 Element sect disciple, and this was the result. In addition, there were already many people who wanted to kill Chu Yang, and because Chu Yang was the younger brother of the unparalleled saint, there were definitely many people in the 5 Element sect who wanted to kill Chu Yang. For example, the 5 Element sect's godchild who was qualified to stand with them had an old grudge with the unparalleled saint, Chu Fei. The matter was very simple. The 5 Element godchild wanted Chu Fei to be his dog, but Chu Fei didn't do it. In the end, it was very unpleasant. Sui Yunfu even believed that the fire element peak master was using Chu Yang to show his loyalty to the 5 Element godchild. The 5 Element godchild was already in the 6th level of the soul reincarnation realm. The peak masters of the outer 10 peaks were mostly in the 3rd or 4th level of the soul reincarnation realm, while the 5 peak masters of the inner 5 peaks were mostly in the 5th or 6th level of the soul reincarnation realm. It could be said that there weren't many in the sect who were stronger than the 5 Element godchild. The 5 Element godchild wasn't just qualified to stand with them. It could be said that he was second only to the 5 Element sect master. Sui Yunfu's pupils shrank as countless thoughts flashed through his mind. After he recovered from his shock, he said, just because of a joke from the most handsome man, you want to treat the lives of the sect's disciples as a joke? Brother Sui, your words are too much. I'm just interrogating him. How could there be any danger to his life? The fire element peak's peak master easily turned Sui Yunfu's accusation into nothingness. The other peak lords of the outer and inner peaks all had various expressions on their faces. Of course, they knew that something fishy was going on. Are you just going to interrogate me? Sui Yunfu sneered and directly called out his name, Song Yang. You seem to have said the same thing a few decades ago, but what happened in the end? The fire element peak lord Song Yangyan's expression changed and turned extremely ugly. At that time, many people were pointing fingers at him behind his back. Sui Yunfu, please mind your identity and tone. Song Yangyang was the peak master of the inner peak. His status was indeed higher than Sui Yunfu's, and his cultivation was also higher than Sui Yunfu's. Song Yangyang was already a little angry from embarrassment. Sui Yunfu's eyes narrowed again, but he felt helpless. He glanced at Long Feiqi and Du Guangbo from the corner of his eyes. At this moment, both of them had angry looks on their faces. Chu Yang is very famous now. If something happens, I'm afraid it won't be good for our sect. Long Feiqi spoke. His tone wasn't very good, but it wasn't the case. What did he mean by very famous? What did he mean by it won't be good for our sect? It was indeed bad, and even very bad. The Soul Devourer clan had just come to slap Chu Yang in the face and wanted to kill him. If Chu Yang still died in the end, how would the disciples of the Five Elements sect react? And was Song Yang also a dog of the Soul Devourer clan? Was he a spy of the Soul Devourer clan? This Chu Yang is definitely a genius, but that's not the important point. The important point is that he's a new disciple. Du Guangbo also spoke. His words were very interesting. New disciples who had just entered the Five Elements sect didn't have a strong sense of belonging to the sect. If something like this happened, don't expect the new disciples to have a good impression of the Five Elements sect, let alone a sense of belonging. Don't expect them to revere you. Chapter 468. Apart from the two of them, no one else spoke. It wasn't that they didn't dare to offend the Fire Element Peak Master, but they didn't want to offend the Five Elements Divine Son. Perhaps this was what the Five Elements Divine Son wanted. He wanted to kill the Peerless Saint's brother. Don't worry about that, Song Yang said. I'll just search his soul. If he's innocent and cooperates with me, he'll be fine. If he's guilty, then it's only natural that he'll become a fool. Soul search. Sui Yun Fu squinted his eyes. If he wasn't careful, his soul would be damaged and he would become a fool. Especially since Chu Yang could resist the soul pressure of an ascending soul realm cultivator at the Chi Soul realm. His soul must be extremely powerful. In that case, even if Chu Yang cooperated with him, his soul would automatically resist the invasion. It was extremely dangerous. It could be said that the more powerful one's soul was, the more dangerous the soul search would be. It would be fine if Chu Yang was just an ordinary person. With Song Yang's cultivation, there was almost no danger in searching his soul. Song Yang was obviously targeting Chu Yang on purpose. Who in the Five Elements sect didn't know about Chu Yang's astonishing abilities? Song Yang is determined to kill Chu Yang. Sui Yun Fu was furious, but there was nothing he could do. He only said 3 words. I don't agree. I don't agree either. I don't agree either. Only Long Phage and Du Guangbo supported Sui Yun Fu. The rest, be it the Outer Peak Masters or Inner Peak Masters, didn't say anything. Sui Yun Fu, since you don't agree, let's see what everyone thinks. Song Yang sneered and said, I'm the most handsome. I must kill this traitor. I won't let go of any clues. I intend to interrogate Chu Yang from the Divine Command Peak. Anyone who disagrees can speak up. No one said anything. Sui Yun Fu felt sad. Stop talking nonsense. I'm the most handsome, so I must die. The Five Elements Divine Child's face was cold. He didn't have much respect for the Peak Masters present. He said coldly, he's just a disciple of the Divine Command Peak. So what if he's dead? If something happens, I will report it to the sect master myself. Sui Yun Fu, I order you to immediately bring us over to interrogate that so-called Chu Yang. Chu Yang was just a core disciple of the Five Elements sect, so why would the Five Elements Divine Son care about his life or death? Arrogant, domineering, and arbitrary. He was cold-blooded and callous. Sui Yun Fu was so angry that his entire body was trembling. Humph. The divine child of 5 elements snorted coldly. In an instant, some peak masters felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Their entire body trembled. Then, he glanced at Sui Yunfu coldly, his eyes extremely cold. Sui Yunfu, you can have your opinions, but I hope you can carry out my orders. Do you understand? The 5 elements divine child released an extremely cold aura around him. It was as if he had brought everyone into an ice cave. The thick murderous intent was also released. They could faintly see a trace of blood and hear the screams and wails of people before they died. Sui Yunfu was furious and wanted to attack, but he was stopped by Du Guangbo and Long Face. Song Yang looked at Sui Yunfu's furious expression and sneered in his heart. Idiot! The divine child wants to kill people, and you can stop him. You really don't have any eyesight. The others had different feelings. In general, the divine child of 5 elements' arrogance made them unhappy, even if they weren't angry. And Chu Yang's fate was decided. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Chapter 469. Divine Command Peak, Wall-Facing Peak. Chu Yang knew nothing about the decision of the Five Elements sect's higher-ups. After he had fully deduced the Five Elements' chaotic steps, he began to cultivate the Mahamayuri scripture. Om. Yu Luo, Emperor Jilan, Sioha. Chu Yang chanted the mantra as the true core energy in his body surged and circulated according to the Mahamayuri scripture's meridian route. A large Buddha appeared in his sea of qi and sat on a peacock. The peacock spread its wings and flew. The large Buddha also chanted the mantra and its voice came from Chu Yang's body. Om. Yu Luo, Emperor Jilan, Sioha. Wang. As the large Buddha moved, Chu Yang's true core energy surged out from his double rib steps and quickly formed arms. At first, the arms were still a little blurry. However, as the Gang Qi and true core energy circulated in Chu Yang's body became more complex and mysterious, the arms became more solid. As if they were solid, the meridians, blood vessels, and even the bones could be seen clearly in the arms. He could even see the periosteum on the surface of the bones. Wang, wang, wang. Streams of true core energy gushed out from his body and formed arms. There were a total of 8 arms. In addition to Chu Yang's own arms, there were a total of 10 arms. Then, a 5-colored lotus seat gradually appeared under him and lifted his body. It's surprisingly smooth. It seems that after my cultivation level has increased, it's easy to form these 8 arms. I should be able to construct the Mahamayuri scripture Dharma form now. Chu Yang used to find it difficult to form 8 arms with his true core energy. However, now he could form them immediately with just a thought. Let's try and we'll know. Boom. The moment Chu Yang tried to construct the Mahamayuri scripture Dharma form, his true core energy surged out violently and his body shook violently. At the same time, not only was his true core energy consumed rapidly, but so was his mind power. In an instant, he felt that his mind power was like a vast ocean that was being drained in an instant. At this moment, he felt that his essence, qi, and spirit were being drawn out, as if his divine soul had left his body. Immediately, in his spiritual world, due to the lack of mind power, his head started to ache slightly. This was a reaction caused by the excessive mind power consumption. TSK. Mo Yu Luo, Jilan Di, Sasuha. Accompanied by Buddhist chants, a peacock appeared. It opened its 5-colored peacock tail, which was extremely beautiful. Then, a large Buddha appeared. He was wearing a white robe, a crown on his head, a jade necklace, earrings, bracelets, all kinds of dignified things. He was sitting cross-legged on the peacock. The peacock spread its tail as if it was forming a 5-colored divine ring. He had a merciful appearance, and had 4 arms. The first hand on his right hand was holding the blossoming lotus, the second hand was holding the all-destined fruit, the left hand was holding the auspicious fruit, and the second hand was holding 3 or 5 peacock tails. This gigantic Buddha shone brightly with 5-colored Buddha radiance. Solemn chanting of sutras could be heard coming from the boundless 5-colored light. It was resplendent, majestic, solemn, and awe-inspiring. Chu Yang had succeeded. He had successfully constructed Mahamayuri's Dharma form. However, this was Mahamayuri's benevolent and peaceful appearance. When he was angry, he had 3 faces and 8 arms. Chu Yang still could not construct it. So, the reason why I couldn't construct Mahamayuri's arms was because my mind power was insufficient. Chu Yang realized that his mind power was still insufficient. It seemed like he was only a little bit away from forming Mahamayuri's 3 faces and 8 arms Dharma form when Mahamayuri was angry. However, this little bit of mind power would require a lot of mind power, a lot of mind power. The slightest difference could lead to a huge difference. Let's talk about this later. The consumption of mind power is too great. I have to recover my mind power immediately. Boom. Mahamayuri's Dharma form dispersed in an instant. In Chu Yang's spiritual world, the 5-element cycle immediately formed. His mind power entered the cycle and rapidly recovered. At the same time, Chu Yang also started to form seals. Sometimes, a spiritual bead would appear in his hand like the rising sun. Sometimes, a treasure vase would appear. Sometimes, a lotus would bloom. Sometimes, a lion would appear. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.